Welcome, welcome, one and all, to the Spring Championship. I am Dahvplays. I'm masquerading as Astrogoth Ironhand today because I don't have my webcam set up. I am joined by the legendary Loremaster of Sotek himself. How you doing, Sotek?
I'm doing great. You shouldn't have said anything. They never would have guessed. It's practically identical.
I know, right? Oh, well, super excited to be here for all of you guys today. We've got some incredible multiplayer action on the new Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs 3.0 update. Very exciting stuff. Just wanted to do a quick call out to start. We're doing things a little bit differently this time around on this invitational. To give you the best possible experience, we're going to be casting the games from fresh replays instead of spectating live. Allows us to cut down on some of the dead time in between games and just, no lag, disconnects, kind of some of the issues that come with doing live events sometimes. So we are going to be going through these on replays. Also, those of you guys watching along on Twitch, if you're logged in, you'll see that there's an awesome Twitch extension for the Spring Championship. Will allow you to sort of guess and predict the outcome of, like, I believe there's the pick and bans, right? If I'm not mistaken. Various things on there.
Picks and bans, various little votes on, like, which unit will survive the longest, or, like, who's gonna get the most damage value, a bunch of other stuff like that.
Yes, and there is an entry at the end to get some Chaos Dwarf keys. If you haven't picked up the DLC yet, it's a great way to be able to do so. So to participate, click on the Ghost Game Boy icon at the top right of the stream, or if you're on mobile, on the right of the screen, just about the chat, and you can log into the extension and you'll be good to go. Just vote on the polls as they appear.
Yep.
And then one last little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The other major change for this championship is it's being run in partnership with Intel. Intel, of course, has been a longtime partner of Creative Assembly, helped develop the laboratory for Warhammer 2, the Mirrors of Madness now. So they have also allowed us to expand the prize pool for all competitors. So just as a reminder for what these guys are competing for, first place prize is $1,500 plus the title of the next Total War champion. Second place is $1,000. Third place is $500. Fourth place, $250. And the rest of the participants also get $100 for their time and effort in bringing this to you all. And
which is awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know these guys have been practicing hard, getting in a lot of test games on the new patch. They've had a little bit of time for early access so they could get used to the Chaos Dwarfs and the new patch. So without further ado, I think we are just about ready to get started with probably the best named matchup of the day: House Cat of War versus XMT Dog Person.
So, a match made in heaven.
Cats versus dogs, indeed. So I believe we are pretty much ready to get started. We got to go through the picks and bans. That's right. We do have a wonderful graphic here with the picks and bans. So let me get to those here.
Gotta say, super duper excited to see this. Although there has been a lot of really nice showcasing of the new content, there's something always so special and different about getting to see people who really have it all out on the line and have genuinely been practicing, doing everything in their power to go all in, going at it and showcasing everything, because it's such a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a whole new world, as they say. So for the pick and ban system, just to quickly explain it for those of you guys who are not familiar with this format, it's a pick 3, ban 1. So in this case, House Cat of War is going to start. He's going to pick 3 factions, those being Chaos Dwarfs, Warriors of Chaos, and Norska. He also gets 1 ban. He chooses to ban the Empire, so that prevents Dog Person from picking that faction. He is then going to Dog Person, that is, going to pick Beastman, ban Norska. Out of the 3, of course, the House Cat picked, which leaves just Chaos Dwarfs and Warriors of Chaos remaining. House Cat of War then chooses Chaos Dwarfs. So we'll kind of flow through that a little bit faster in the future. Just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a breakdown for those of you guys who are new to this. I know we probably have a lot of fresh viewers out there who are not familiar with the tournament formats, so let's jump right in. So right off the bat, in terms of the multiplayer sort of balance, I would expect to see a lot of magma cannons. They seem to be one of the best, sort of most cost-effective Chaos Dwarf units, and that's a phrase you'll hear me say a lot, and I'm sure turn in Italian too tomorrow. Cost effectiveness is king in multiplayer. The most coolest, most elite units sometimes are the best, but often it's kind of the mid-tier units that perform very well for the cost that you really want to see. And here we are in battle, going to be getting straight into it. We've got, looks like a Demon Smith Sorcerer, Lore of Fire for House Cat, going to be vanguarding forth. Not quite full Vanguard, but you know what I mean. We've got, looks like some Chaos Dwarf Warriors, Infernal Ironsworn here, Blazing Beards of, how's that, Bazarak? We've also got a Magma Cannon here, 2 of them, and plenty of Laborers. Why don't you take us through the Beastman's army, Sotek?
Yeah, so leading the Beastman, we've got a great Brave Shaman of Shadows, bringing nothing but bit of shades to the battle, though he is up on a Tuskor Chariot to give him some more mobility. He then is backed up by quite a few units of Ungor Raiders. Looks like he's brought the maximum he could bring with him to the battlefield. He's also got Blackhorn's Ravengers, a regiment of renown Gore Herd, helping claim that 3rd objective. And then he's got further reinforcements with a lot of Ungor Spearmen, including the Destroyers of the Drakwall with their poison attacks. And of course, 2 units of Minotaurs, one with great weapons and the other being the Butchers of the Kulkan Guard, with their regeneration giving them some pretty serious durability.
Yes, it does, although it also does give them a weakness to fire, and as we both know, the Chaos Dwarfs do love lighting stuff on fire, so we'll see if that comes back to potentially haunt them later on in the game. For now, though, Beastman taking a nice positional advantage with the Gore Herds here taking this 3rd objective. Blackhorn's Ravagers, Regiment of Renown, they also get this Rowdy trait that normally is reserved for Centaurs, gives them perfect vigor as long as their leadership stays high. And as we all know, the cardio is king for Total War Warhammer. The units with perfect vigor who won't tire out as the battle wears on give a pretty huge advantage, especially if you can keep them alive in a longer game mode like Domination. But the points opening up here and the Dog Person having a nice positional advantage. He gets the initial capture on these 2 objectives, but we see already Hashut's Dark Ravagers, these Regiment of Renown Bull Centaur Renders. They've got their dual axes that they're just so mad they literally have to throw them as a Regiment of Renown, and yeah, it's a very, very brutal attack there. I mean, I would imagine, you know, an axe the size of several plates landing on your head would be painful, but...
Yeah, I'm sure taking an axe the size of your body to the face, it might do a little damage.
Just a little bit of damage.
Yeah, and the nice thing with those is despite the fact they're a shooting unit, they do still bring, you know, the stats of the regular dual axes, so that anti-infantry bonus is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh, certainly, certainly. And the fact they're very heavy mass as well, I mean, they are some thick boys. The Beastman infantry tends to be very light as well in terms of weight, so they are definitely going to take serious damage on the charge anytime those Bull Centaurs do a nice hit-and-run attack. Blackhorn's Ravagers, though, that little bit of a loose formation should help them not take quite so much damage, but we see now the Minotaurs with Grey Opens maneuvering over to try and kind of counteract that. The elite anti-large damage should be very good against the Bull Centaurs there. Also, lack of armor isn't too much of a problem here. The little bit of missile resistance they have does protect them to a degree against the Ungor Raiders, but certainly if the Ungor Raiders were to develop like you know, quite a few units in one area, it would be very dangerous to the Bull Centaurs at greater volume. But you were just telling me, Sotek, about the language of the Chaos Dwarfs as these guys kind of initially skirmish. It's one thing that I noticed playing the DLC is of course, the sound design, as always, absolutely S tier. And the language, it sounds like they're gargling gravel, which it seems very appropriate to the Chaos Dwarfs.
That's I'd say that's a good way to put it. So did have a little interview with Andy Hall that got put out earlier today where he talks a lot about it. But they're speaking Zaralid, which is functionally Kazalid, which is the regular dwarf tongue, but interfused with some notes from some kind of ancient, couple of ancient little language notes from our world, from like Babylonian type times, along with the dark tongue of the various chaos races. So kind of what you would expect to create the language of the Chaos Dwarfs.
It sounds so appropriate. Like Astrogoth, especially his campaign map voice lines, he's just so mad and like grumbling. It's perfect. Housecat, though, is putting together a little bit of a push here. We see Dogperson has developed a few more Minotaurs. He's got another unit of great weapons out here. But the Dwarfs are making a push now. We're going to see a nice Burning Head just cut down a unit of Ungor Raiders. Wow. Love the new VFX and the power of that spell. Just a one-shot, relatively cheap unit, but still. It's good to just tactically remove those guys, ensure the safety of those Bull Centaurs. We also see off the Vanguard deployment, one huge strength of the Beastmen. So many of their units have that Vanguard deployment trait, so they can come off of these further forward deployment points and get some really nice positioning in order to pressure the Chaos Dwarfs as they advance here.
Yeah, so for those kind of watching at home who maybe aren't as used to multiplayer formats, kind of what's the goal for the Beastmen here, considering they've been getting peppered a lot in this kind of early skirmish phase from those magma cannons? You know, what's kind of like the comeback strategy there?
So Dogperson, it seems like, is trying to accrue quite a bit of units on the field, right? Because the key with domination is you have to hold these objectives, which then counts up the victory tickets, like any domination mode you're familiar with from RTS or FPS games. So right now he's sort of hanging back because he had the advantage on points. He doesn't really have the impetus to engage. Instead, he's trying to bait Housecat in to overextend so that he can then, you know, develop superior forces to try and overwhelm. Like with this Vanguard point, he can bring in reinforcements a lot faster, especially considering Chaos Dwarfs, a lot of their units are quite slow, but we see there Housecat is counteracting that fact by bringing in Bull Centaurs. Quite expensive as reinforcements, but that speed allows them to get into combat quickly and reinforce this position. Well, let's see how this combat is actually going here. The Minotaurs are trading okay. The Bull Centaurs, I think, overall are a slightly better unit. They're just a little bit more of everything. They're a little bit more expensive as well, but especially 2v1 here with the Infernal Ironsworn, that is a lot of value for the Minotaurs to try and cut through. And the Magma Cannons just raining absolute fire in their backline as well. He's been having a hard time maintaining their cohesion because of that.
Yeah, that Pit of Shades, though, is doing work when it can get in.
Oh, yeah, nice Pit of Shades right on those blazing beards. Gets a chunk of those Bull Centaurs as well. Not going to do as much damage to them, but certainly will do some. We're going to see a nice Burning Head in response here. Just absolutely cleans out those Ungor Spearmen herd. Yeah, so we're going to overrun, though, and do a little bit of friendly fire, too, to those Chaos Dwarfs. Not too much because of their armor, but certainly it does hurt.
Yeah,
they also have fire resistance as well.
Yeah, that's, what, I think, like 30-something%, or 15% on the regular guys. I think it goes up higher on some of the bigger boys.
Yeah, 15%, similar to Order Dwarfs spell resistance, right? So let's see here. We've got some Warhounds coming back in. Dogperson doing his best to just reinforce here, but the Chaos Dwarfs push is pretty painful. We can see that the value trade up here on the top left, Housecat is accruing quite a bit more damage on Dogperson's army. Dogperson kind of taking a little bit of a beating here. That Magma Cannon just so painful at a distance. That does mean that, yeah, I mean, Dogperson for now still maintaining this outside objective with some light forces, but this main fight has gone pretty south for him, honestly. The Bull Centaurs and the Ironsworn were too much for the Minotaurs to try and deal with. The supporting Ungors just got worn down by that Magma Cannon, so it's not looking great for him right now, but let's see if he can potentially come back in this. Oh, no. That's bad, though. The Great Bray Shaman gets his chariot surrounded by Bull Centaurs, and they cut him to pieces in a hurry. That is going to be quite painful.
Those great axes, they put that anti-large to work. Those are beat up. Yep, the anti-large.
Oh, they just, I understand, Dogperson. He just got straight up killed, and that's going to be a severe leadership penalty, obviously, for the Beastmen. I mean, anytime your Lord dies, you get a permanent leadership debuff across your entire army, and for somewhat low leadership faction like Beastmen, it's pretty much a death sentence. You see, though, look at the kills on those Magma Cannons. Just so efficient. And yeah, absolutely
Yeah, they got
devastating.
amazing value. It almost feels like the Beastmen would have been very, very well suited to have some harpies on the battlefield to maybe help try and interrupt those.
Yeah, something. The problem with Harpies, they don't really have a lot of AP damage. I almost wonder, yeah, it's tough because Razor Gores are relatively cheap, and if you could get them around into the backline to pressure the cannons, they definitely have the armor piercing to deal with them. But it's going to be tricky to try and outmaneuver, light cavalry potentially, or certainly the bulls, as we saw there. I like the fact that Dog Person has tried to challenge them with the Minotaur's great weapons, and, on paper, it seems like a very cost-effective trade, but without, the supporting elements there, and with the Chaos Dwarfs having some really strong support and the Ironsworn, just didn't end up working out perfectly. But let's go ahead and get on to the next replay here as I pull up the picks and bans for Game 2. Dog Person is now on the pick 3 phase, so we're going to go through those very quickly here. Dog Person now on this round picks Skaven, Norska, and Ogres, bans Vampire Coast. Man after my own heart, I personally despise undead, so I would definitely also ban Vampire Coast. House Cat of War. Yes, it's true. I know.
It's like they're even worse than regular undead. They're undead with guns.
Oh, yep. And, giant, crab monsters with anchors for hands. Anyway. So Housecat is going to pick Norska and ban Norska, so preventing the Norska mirror. Smart. Norska's pretty decent overall. Dog Person gonna go with Ogres, so very interesting choice. Norska sort of build as a monster hunter faction. Ogres almost exclusively consisting of monstrous infantry. Should be very interesting.
Yeah, so real quick, we've seen the Norska ban and then immediately follow-up pick twice now. Can you explain what might be going into making that particular decision?
You mean like the pick Norska, ban Norska?
Yeah, so both times we've kind of seen a Norska ban come in as trying to get them away from there. What is anything kind of changed with Norska, or is anything kind of come into your mind as far as what may be behind that?
Norska, thinking about it, I can't recall if they got any really drastic changes. I believe, the changes to infantry knockdown might have helped their monsters, since they have sort of a monster-focused roster themselves with, the skin wolves and, trolls and stuff. They're probably a little bit better now. I think, did Marauder Champions also get a direct buff? I don't remember 100%. But in general, they're just a very dangerous faction. Ice Wolves are probably one of the best mobile units in the game right now. And just in general, they can be really scary to deal with. So, yeah, I would guess that's the reason why. It's just that the players, or maybe they don't have a lot of experience playing against them. They've only had early access for a limited amount of time. Norska, at least from my perspective, was one of those factions that can sort of fall by the wayside a little bit. But, yeah, in terms of, people don't always remember to practice against them. I realize that I have
so many races now. Yeah, you only have so much time.
It's true. There's so many matchups, and I was trying to put out one video a day on each matchup for LAN battles, right? And even over the entire early access, I didn't even have time to get through 3/4 of them. There were still quite a few left that I haven't got to yet. So it's a lot to try and wrap your head around, especially when there's a decent amount of changes, and there certainly were quite a few changes in the patch 3.0 updates. So. Yeah, just working on a couple of quick technical difficulties here. Bear with.
Sure thing.
Yes,
While we're doing that, just want to give a quick reminder, everyone. There is a little ghost that icon that should be available if you're watching on Twitch. Make sure you're interacting with that. It is a Twitch extension that can, if you answer questions right, it kind of enters tickets that you could win a copy of the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs DLC for yourself at the end of the stream. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that.
Yes, indeed. I think we're pretty much ready to go on to the next game here. Got everything loaded up.
All right.
And...
let's roll with this puppy.
Okay.
And while that's kind of coming up, something that kind of came up during the last match that I think might be worth elaborating a little bit about, because you kind of mentioned that Harpies would not have necessarily been well suited to deal with the magma cannon. The Chaos Wars have very unique war machines compared to everyone else. Can you kind of delve into that a little bit as far as what makes them so different?
Yeah, so the war machines for the Chaos Dwarfs are single entities, and what that means is the crew is not a separate component from the artillery piece. If you take like Queen Bess or a regular Hell Cannon, for example, for the Warriors of Chaos, the crew is a separate, like it's a bunch of dudes, right? That's separate from the artillery piece itself, which means the dudes can get killed separately, usually relatively easily. Artillery crews typically don't have much in the way of melee stats, so even like a basic light cavalry can take them out, or, you know, they typically don't have a lot of armor, like a volley of archers can take them out relatively easily. Alternately, the artillery pieces themselves can be destroyed by various means. When they're in a single entity, when the crew and the war machine are all in one tight little package, all sharing the same health pool, then the crew can't be killed separately or vice versa. So what that means is those artillery pieces often are a lot tougher to shut down. Like you can't just, for example, Harpies would be able to just kill a crew of an Empire cannon, for example, whereas the Magma cannon can shrug off their damage. But speaking of single entity artillery, I don't see any for the Ogres. They also have a few pieces in the Scrap Launcher and Iron Blaster, but none currently deployed. Dog Person coming forward with just a front line of Noblars, second line of Trappers. He's got some Sky Striders and the Ogre Bulls here with some Iron Guts. Slaughtermaster of the Great Maw leading the way. Firebelly, very interesting choice. I kind of like it though. Burning Head seems very solid right now. And we've also got this Mournfang here as well with great weapons for anti-large. Why don't you take us through Housecat's Norskin army?
Yeah, so the Norskin army, pretty wide formation, a lot of Marauder Spearmen. He's kind of got it separated into two little blocks. So sort of on this left block over here, we've got these 3 units of Marauder Spearmen backed up by Marauder Hunters with Javelins and a front line of regular Marauders. So kind of a lot of chaff, but allowing those Javelins to stay safe enough where they can really start to mess up the Ogres, because that anti-large penalty is going to hurt. But then the main force, we see we got, what, 4 units of Skin Wolves running around. Looks like one of them is armored, however, and they are backed up by even more Marauder Spearmen and a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal who's bringing Plague of Rust and Searing Doom to the battlefield. I think I saw a Death one running around somewhere else on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. He might have been unsummoned immediately. It's possible that happened as well, but it looks like the Icehorn Marauders are going to be coming out. We've got some more Javelins, so definitely smart to go heavily into the Javelins. I mean, it's very obvious, but anti-large against the Ogres is quite strong, especially against their more unarmored units. Those Javelins will shred them in seconds. Even the more armored ones, though, will definitely be punished. Lore of Metal here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the spells. He does have Plague of Rust, so against those higher armor targets like the Crushers, overcast that Plague of Rust for minus 60 armor, and all of a sudden those Javelins will be performing just as well against them. I really like Searing Doom as well. It's probably, in my opinion, the best bombardment spell in the game. Very cheap, very cost effective, and does really nice damage, especially to cavalry. But let's see what they've got.
Yeah, quick cast time too, which is really nice.
Yes, almost impossible to dodge. If you're in melee especially, it's functionally impossible to dodge. We've got some more bulls coming out here for the Ogres. Both players very patiently, again, just kind of developing their armies for a nice big clash. Right now they've both got 19 units on the field, but we could be looking at essentially a gigantic land battle here, which is certainly something I'm a big fan of.
The Ogres are starting to look awfully hungry, but the Ogres do kind of have the advantage here in that they've got those 2 points already, so I'm sure they're happy to sit and wait.
Yeah, they're certainly accruing some victory ticket advantage, but as we saw in the last game, Housecat definitely has a capacity to just push up and deal enough damage to come back, as long as he gives himself enough time, so we'll enjoy the beautiful sights and sounds of Itza as these two kind of prepare their armies. This is often how some domination games go. If neither player feels they have a distinct advantage in engaging, it's not uncommon to see both players just kind of build their armies for a little while and bring in some different tools to try and, you know, like they scout their opponent's build and try and bring in some counters to help shore up what they have here. But
Yeah,
both
while
good.
we
Now
kind of
going
got
over
this
20.
Wild West standoff going on, so we've kind of talked about the Norska spells. What do the ogres bring to the table as far as magic is concerned?
So typically in multiplayer, you'll see Great Maw, mostly for healing. Troll Guts is a really strong heal spell. The healing generally tends to be very strong in multiplayer, so personally I'm a big fan of Bullgorger as well, the buff spell to cast on high-value single entities. There doesn't seem to be very many of those in this particular battle, and they're less common in Domination than they would be in land battles. But we've also got, of course, Burning Head. Lore of Fire is just awesome. Now, with the VFX rework and some various buffs and tweaks, Burning Head has, at points, been one of the most popular spells in multiplayer, so it's definitely nice to see it make a little bit of a resurgence. And, yeah, the Ogres also have their army abilities, which, in my opinion, this might be a hot take, but I think they're the best army abilities in the game. You've got
really
a huge... Yeah, oh yeah. Slaanesh is pretty close, and Nurgle's also up there, but you've got a absolutely devastating slow and dismember. You've got the heal, that's the N tier one, right? And there's what's the one I'm forgetting? Oh yeah, it's a huge AoE weapon strength and terror buff, which is also really strong and stackable with, again, like Bullgorger or other things. So I don't know. I think the combination of those abilities, terror, healing, and a slow, I mean, that's like 3 of the strongest ability types you could have. The only thing that would make it even better is a summon, but yeah, I don't know.
Like
what do you think,
it is
Sotek?
showtime.
Oh, yeah. Going to be charging in here, the Ogres and the Noblars stacked on top of each other, as is tradition. Let's see, though, if the Sky Striders can get in here and close on some Skin Wolves. They would be able to tear them apart very quickly. They do have magic damage. Skin Wolves do rely to a degree on their physical resistance. Nice Searing Doom in that center engagement, though. And Norska taking, so far, a little bit more damage, but certainly let's see how things play out. The Spears are in a really good position here to screen for the Skin Wolves. It looks like the Crushers' Plague of Rust non-overcast on them, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get a really good charge into the Skin Wolves here. They're going to have to reposition in order to do so, but a nice hit on those Javelins by the Mournfangs. Quick hit-and-run charge. I don't know, maybe should have stayed the course there, honestly, and tried to finish those Javelins off, but I guess there are plenty more nearby, and we see the effect of those Javelins on those poor dual hand weapon Ogre Bulls in the center. That got absolutely shredded there. Skin Wolves also helping to contribute to that, but it's just a huge, huge battle all the way across the field here, so lots going on. Marauders and Ogres and Noblars all just in a big bloody pile everywhere. It's fantastic.
Yeah, man, when domination battles, they can start off a little slow, but when they get going, it devolves into absolute anarchy very quick.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Housecat so far is a little bit behind on damage, but certainly gaining. The Crushers in a pretty critical engagement with the Mournfangs out here on the far left of the Ogre's formation. Norska has less value overall invested in this, and it's kind of going evenly, which is not great for the Ogres. In the center, things are going a little bit worse, even if that's possible, but the Skin Wolves are definitely proving their value here. Despite the Trappers now kind of skirmishing them down, even if they get routed off, they'll be able to regenerate and come back with renewed verve and vigor. But got a Manticore coming out as well.
With all these Skin Wolves, it's almost... I wonder if the Ogre player is regretting not having a Flaming Sword of Ruin, perhaps, on his Fire Belly to bring that extra fire damage he could have had.
Yeah, certainly could have been helpful. Even just with the regular Bulls trying to trade into Skin Wolves, it would make that much more efficient. But looks like the Manticore is going to come in here and maybe try and snipe the Fire Belly. The thickness of the Ogres will prevent him from really getting to its intended target. The Manticore, unfortunately, is a skinny boy, and it's not the heaviest monster in the world. But let's check back in on the far side where the Crushers are pushing through. They did get that Massacre buff, the army ability I was talking about, to cause terror, terrify away the Skin Wolves. It's a great way to try and get them off the field and prevent them from getting too much regeneration value, but the Skin Wolves are still just in such a density here that it's hard to overcome. We see a Saber-Tusk pack get absolutely eaten. Hey, it's cats versus dogs, just like we said. Oh, yes. Say the Mournfangs also, with their anti-large, you would think would trade pretty well, but just the support spears and the javelins have definitely made things very, very strong for Norska. And is there any, in the lore, are there any ogres who are specifically associated with going up in the north and associating with Norska, or not really?
Oh yeah, there are. Norska is kind of a prime area for ogres to like to go and fight, along with a lot of the Chaos Wastes, because there's all sorts of weird things up there to eat. You never know how many extra limbs and tentacles are going to be available. Like, it's kind of like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet that's also a mystery buffet at the same time. But where, you know, food poisoning is not as likely. So it kind of is a challenge in a culinary sense and a battle sense. So it's just one of the favorite places for the ogres to visit.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. You know, some mammoth tail or some leg of chimera or some, you know, some flank steak of manticore. I could go for that, honestly. That sounds pretty good. And the ogres are certainly eating to a degree, but also getting eaten. I mean, Dog Person is still slightly ahead in terms of damage, but the healing actually is going to Norska because of the Skin Wolves regeneration. Ogres have to dedicate either Winds of Magic or their army ability to healing, whereas the Norskin Ice Wolves are just getting it for free. And we see this huge pack of Ice Wolves, the Beasts of Tashnar, the Regiment of Renown, just regular Norskin Wolves with anti-large. They're chasing Sky Striders, who did get a Troll Guts, also getting some reinforcements from some Saber Tusks, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to hold out for much longer against such a concerted effort by all those Skin Wolves.
You know, I just realized it's kind of funny. It's House Cat and Dog, and we've literally got like Saber Cats fighting wolves and Skin Wolves.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's exactly
it's
what everyone.
It's perfect. Oh, that Plague of Rust. Yeah, that's going to be devastating for the Sky Striders.
Yeah, takes them down to 90, which is still pretty high, but anything below 100, once you start to get below 100, it just gets more and more impactful. So that in and of itself, I don't know. It looks like the ogres are getting enough reinforcements. They might be able to push those Skin Wolves back, but Housecat is starting to gain on not only position, but also, yeah, he's got all three objectives secured now, and the army value is almost even at this point, army damage value, so could be a tough situation for Dog Person if he isn't able to get on some of these objectives and capture them in relatively short order, but he does still have some time to work. If we look on the field, I mean, they both technically have the same amount of units on the field, but a lot of the ogres are getting routed. We see some lead belchers were brought out here, but exposed to the Skin Wolves, they are also getting chased down a little bit. I almost wonder, I think, you know, in that initial sort of development phase, if Dog Person had brought his lead belchers out during that phase, he could have got some damage from them, you know, while Housecat was trying to get more units on the field, or even maybe force Housecat into an engagement he wasn't super comfortable with, just because of that ranged damage.
Yeah, that early peppering could have helped a lot, especially when it comes to maybe getting a lot of the Norskin units lower enough that they could be reliably kind of routed.
Right, exactly. And the Skin Wolves, too, if you can kill their unit models, that individual unit model won't regenerate, right? Once it's dead. So with the Lead Belchers, potentially if you could get a few models off the Skin Wolves, that would be a really nice way of getting some very impactful damage. But right now, this Slaughtermaster, poor Slaughtermaster, is just getting nibbled on by the Manticore. You know, the reverse eating is definitely very strong. Going to drop a little bit of Searing Doom, the Norskin caster, to try and bail out the Manticore as it gets surrounded by Hungry Bulls. So lots of fun stuff happening, but things are looking pretty good for Housecat right now. He's in a very, very commanding position. Got great position, lots of units on the field. Looking good.
Yeah, it looks like Dog Person is starting to get a little bit of a push out of his summon zone, but that is never a good thing or a good feeling in domination, is when you're literally stuck in the place where you're summoning units from, and it's so hard to get out of that once you're trapped in there. Yes
it is. If you're getting I don't want to call it spawn camped, because that maybe has a little bit of a negative connotation, but in a way it is getting spawn camped, right? It's a tough situation, but yeah, we see there Dog Person throwing in the towel as he felt he was too far behind, and I definitely understand. Housecat then wins the series 2-0, and it was interesting builds, definitely. I mean, this Norskin build makes a lot of sense. Just the massive amounts of anti-large, all the spears, skin wolves, javelins, literally just max anti-large units, which against the ogres is, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the ogres were relying really hard on a lot of those kind of early, just like mass Noblar swarm, but they weren't really able to get a ton of effectiveness in. I do kind of agree with what you said earlier. Is it almost feels like the ogres needed a bit more, like early kind of skirmish fire as far as like long range is concerned. Just because Norska can't answer that, other than to get up in your face.
Exactly. Even something cheap, I mean, lead belchers are a pretty good choice, but even something cheap like a scrap launcher that can kind of maneuver around and keep itself relatively safe as well, just to get some pressure on even the javelins would have been a pretty good pick early on. But alas, it is what it is. Housecat of War moves on to the next round. He will be fighting tomorrow, hosted by, of course, the legendary Turin and Italian Spartacus, both legends, to be honest. But let's go on to the next, let's see, do we have... Yeah, so we're going to have a showcase video next by the legendary Cody Bonds. Lots of legends in the Total War community, to be honest. But Cody Bonds...
Yes, sir.
We'll be taking a short break as we showcase his video, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to a noob's guide to Astrogoth Ironhand. This is Astrogoth, a high priest of Hashut, and a chaos dwarf so ancient that he needs a custom-made mech suit just to get around. But don't let his old age fool you. This foul-tempered old dwarf doesn't just yell at the kids playing on his lawn, he power punts them off it. Astrogoth Ironhand is part of the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs DLC, and in this video you'll discover his lore and how that's been translated to gameplay in Total War Warhammer 3. But with so many new mechanics introduced with the Chaos Dwarfs, we'll focus on what Astrogoth specializes in, the Tower of Tsar Nagrund and the epically horny Bull Centaurs. Chaos Dwarfs have no centralized government. Instead, their society is run by a cabal of the most powerful high priests of Hashut, a minor chaos god of fire, greed, and tyranny, whose religion is based on the usual stuff: blood sacrifice, ancient magic, and, engineering, that when combined together produce nightmare versions of popular children's programming. The Chaos Dwarf Priest Sorcerers are the ones who used their fire magic to summon the long, hard, black obsidian towers that they like to sit atop, and these priests can be distinguished from the common folk by their absurdly tall hats, neither of which are compensating for something. Already rare with only a few hundred laypeople, Astrogoth keeps their ranks even more exclusive by flaying any incompetent acolytes and wearing their skins as a cloak. He feels it's a fair warning, and also it keeps his lap warm. But eventually the survivors of this atrocious apprenticeship become full sorcerer prophets, the most elite of whom meet together in the Temple of Hashut, built at the tippity top of their tallest building, the Tower of Tsar Nagrund. From here, this conclave controls every aspect of Chaos Dwarf society with absolute authority, from what beard styles will be allowed this year to where their armies will be sent next to dominate. Again though, there's no leader or formal leaders of the Chaos Dwarfs. Everyone is equal in Hashut's eyes. It's just that the sorcerers control the magic, and they're also priests, so anyone who questions whether or not they're in charge is sacrificed to Hashut. The sorcerers have no hierarchy amongst themselves either. I mean, they're all fell brothers in chaos. Dwarfs naturally defer to the oldest among them though, and Astrogoth is the oldest living high priest of Hashut, so it's only right to respect the wisdom and influence he's accumulated, that he could easily use to squash them and their newfangled ideas. I mean, that's how Drazoeth the Ashen found himself banished to a molten hellscape on the ass end of nowhere. No, sorry, the other one. So to reiterate, all Chaos Dwarfs sit at the same round table as equals. It's just that Astrogoth is the one with an iron hand on the Bull God's lap and a thumb in every pie. And that's exactly where Astrogoth will stay until he kicks the bucket. Or at least his mech does. This bit of Boston Dynamics technology is a direct result of Astrogoth's rise to the top of the tower. As a younger dwarf, he was hailed as the most powerful Chaos Dwarf sorcerer for 1,000 years. But everyone knows it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. When you're the best, your elders either challenge you to prove it, or put challenges in your path to stop you from improving further. Chaos Dwarf society is a totalitarian theocracy though, so Astrogoth couldn't exactly walk into their rooms and bury them in liquid hot magma. Although he totally could, he has the magic to do that. Instead, the High Priest have to resort to something even more terrifying to get their way. Politics. The Tower of Tsar Nagrund mechanic visualizes this race to the top in-game with a series of seats and council positions that your chosen lord can hold. These are gained by expending the conclave influence points you gain through conquest and construction. More powerful council seats require more conclave influence to attain, and each seat gives you a range of relevant benefits and kickbacks. Once you reach the top of the pile, you can even use your power to forcibly confederate the other Chaos Dwarf factions, including the capital city of Tsar Nagrund itself, which is held by the AI on turn 1, just like how the Senate held Rome back in Rome Total War. If there's one dwarf that could cross the Rubicon and take it though, it's Astrogoth, mainly because he's the only one tall enough not to drown. You rise to the top by chairing committees and dominating specialized political fields. Hold every seat on a council and you'll get an added bonus. And if there's a council seat that you want that's already occupied, you can use that extra bit of influence to kick that person right out. Want to be a warhawk who supports the military complex district? How about putting profits before human decency in the industry district? You can even sacrifice thousands of children to your dark god to gain extended life and terrifying magical powers in the sorcery district. Also, you can relive the thrill of modern politics, but now with 50% more tall hats. Still, in-game, Astrogoth is a force to contend with, able to wield spells from the lore of fire and the lore of Hashut to ensure his enemies are weakened to blazing attacks before he rains down the unholy hellfire. Though this lifetime pursuit of power and politics for Hashut's glory did come with a price. Unlike the other races in Warhammer, dwarfs weren't meant to wield the sorcerous energies of the winds of magic. I mean, they can still do it, but they develop a unique allergic reaction, the Curse of Stone. Chaos dwarfs who start flinging around spells willy-nilly find themselves slowly turning to stone from the feet up. Every Chaos Dwarf sorcerer will inevitably transform into an immobile stone statue, which are then used to decorate the road to Tsar Nagrund on the cheap. What, just because you pollute and pillage the world doesn't mean you can't recycle. After 400 years spent rock hard and ready to roll, Astrogoth's doctor told him to lay off Hashut's magical blue pills if he wanted to stay mobile. Determined to prove that petrification wasn't the only way a dwarf his age could keep it up, Astrogoth constructed a mechanical device to transport himself around town. His first attempt looked like something Barbra Streisand's ex-husband would dream up, so in his second go, he grafted a powerful steam-driven exoskeleton directly to his body. It combines all the skills of the best laborers that money didn't buy with all the dark magic harnessed by sacrificing those same laborers to make sure nobody would ever build a suit half as sweet. He can leap higher, run faster, and travel further than normal stunty dwarf legs would allow, adopting a tried and tested gait based on the standard of villainous locomotion. But the real trick of this demented Inspector Gadget is that he can punch holes through people with his robot power fists. Murder itself seems to drive the fire demons bound to his metal body. They provide the heat to make his steam, and the more it kills, the more it can kill, increasing the weapon damage and melee attack of Astrogoth every time you put the clamps on someone. So don't be afraid to run Astrogoth right in and punch something. He's a hybrid lord meant for melee and magic after all. If for some reason Astrogoth's enemies still don't get the point, being the High Priest of the Old Ways has another perk. An army of overzealous bull dwarf centaurs, ready to serve his every whim. Since the time the Chaos Dwarfs first made their pact with Hashut, a handful every generation are born blessed with the true form of Hashut. Usually these births kill the mothers because, that thing ain't coming out easy, which is probably for the best, as these abominations are immediately taken at birth and raised by sorcerer prophets. Astragoth and his kin use their dark arts to further mutate them, fusing demon-empowered armor to their bodies to encase them in diabolic iron. This magical tampering means that over time, a bull centaur's flesh hardens to a consistency of living metal, which requires regular oiling and the occasional power wash, as well as someone versed in the arcane art of TIG welding if they're injured, a service which of course only the priests can provide. And you thought the terms of services of a cable contract were bad. As a literal architect of evil, Astragoth has unique skills specifically to reduce their upkeep and increase their armor-penetrating hits, even adding a ward save to all the Bull Centaur renders in his army, reducing all their incoming damage. Which is good, because once you get used to having an army of hulking bullmen around, you're gonna want more of them. Bull Centaur renders serve as vicious shock troops on the battlefield, allowing you to field a highly mobile dwarf army with monstrous cavalry on its wings. Astragoth and the other sorcerers trust the Bull Centaurs implicitly to get whatever job needs doing done. Not least because they divert a steady stream of sacrifices down to their stables for whenever a Bull Centaur gets the munchies.
Give it to us, raw and wriggling.
Though they do have one notable weakness. He's gonna be there for a while. You can expand the number of Bull Centaur renders you can recruit through the Hellforge mechanic. There you'll spend your armament resources to raise their unit cap, and fuel their special abilities by fusing even more weaponry to their skins. So long as you can keep the spice flowing, you'll have an army of Bull steroid-infused centaurs at your beck and call. Astragoth has led a long life at the top, and nearly none of it's been written down, so make your own story for the oldest living Chaos Dwarf, and put his power armor to use. Astragoth can pummel, crush, and even pulverize if the mood strikes you, or maybe show the world the awesomeness of Hashut, converting them to true believers in this minor Chaos God's power, right before their skin melts off. Because this has been a noob's guide to Astragoth Ironhand, High Priest of Hashut.
All right, and we are back. That was a wonderful presentation. Cody Bonds, as always, absolutely killed it, as they say. We are now ready to move on to the next round of games. How you feeling, Sotek? We've got Tim the Wilder versus Drakens.
I'm feeling great. I'm ready to see more matches, and I just gotta say, I really think you did a great job in your cameo appearances in the Cody Bonds video. You did really great.
Oh, thank you. You know, I really, the blocking was tough. The lines, it took me a while to memorize, but we got through it. So,
yeah, your Zarlid is very impressive. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I literally was gargling rocks. So, yes, let's get to the picks and bans for Tim the Wilder versus Drakens, game 1. Now, on this round, let's see here. Oh, I just had it. Where'd it go? Here it is. Okay, so Tim the Wilder is going to start his 3 picks: Chaos Dwarfs, Ogre Kingdoms, and Skaven, and a big brain move. No ban. Just straight up no bans. Drakens responds...
No ban!
He chooses to not choose. Drakens chooses the Chaos Dwarfs, and also bans the Chaos Dwarfs, so we won't see Davizar Mirror today, unfortunately. Tim the Wilder will then pick the Ogres, so we've got Ogres versus Chaos Dwarfs. A very fun matchup, probably one of the more interesting matchups I've seen for Chaos Dwarfs. So let's get that loaded up, and we'll get ready to go. What do you think? I know there's one legendary lord who's, like, associated with the Chaos Dwarfs. He was an ogre, right?
Yeah, so in the lore, there is an ogre tribe that is very fond of the Chaos Dwarfs, which is the Iron Skin tribe, and their big bad tyrant is called Garg Ironskin. And the Chaos Dwarfs, as a gift, gave him a giant mechanical demon mecha Rhinox. So hopefully we'll see him one day, because he sounds terrifying.
Yes, I definitely need that. Definitely need that. So let's go ahead and let's see what the Dahvplays are brought in this particular battle. We've got Demon Smith Sorcerer of Fire once again up in the air, double Magma Cannon as is typical, bunch of Chaos Dwarf infantry here, and he's pushing up sort of his opponent's sideline. It's very interesting. Both these players are kind of pushing up their opponent's sideline in a way. Looks like some Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, and that's pretty much it. Why don't you take us through what the Ogres have on the field here?
Yeah, so the starting general, so to speak, who's already firing off some volleys, is an Iron Blaster running around the middle of the field, causing some early skirmish. Then we've got a bunch of Ogre Bulls, some with dual weapons, some with regular, running around. Both sides are backed up by Man-Eaters with great weapons. And there are also some Noblar Trappers to provide some extra numbers and kind of some of that early shooting support. But it's mostly just kind of bulls backed up with Man-Eaters at the moment, along with that kind of early skirmisher Iron Blaster. Until more units get on the field, anyway.
Yeah, definitely smart, as we discussed in the last Ogre game with House Cat Dog Person. It's nice to get that early skirmish in if you can get good lines of fire. Right now, a lot of the Chaos Dwarf army being up on this hilltop means that the Iron Blaster doesn't have that great of a line of sight to try and shoot up at them. So for now, both players are just kind of maneuvering and trying to get into position here. We'll see. I would definitely expect some Bull Centaur great weapons at some point in this match. Chaos Dwarfs, like their Order counterparts, don't have a lot of direct anti-large, instead relying mostly on their shooting to get the job done against monsters. They really only have, the Bull Centaur great weapons and the Fire Glaives. The Infernal Guard with Fire Glaives are the only units with direct anti-large. Maybe, I guess the heroes of both of those as well, but...
Yes, yeah, the Infernal Castellan and the Bull Centaur Taruk.
Yes, so similar to how dwarfs really only have slayers and giant slayers with direct anti-large, makes it a little bit tricky when you're faced with a faction like ogres that's going to bring so many large units, but certainly you have plenty of things that can get the damage done regardless, and we do see some Bull Centaur great weapons coming up to secure this objective number 1. Try and make sure the ogres can't secure that objective right now. Draken's Chaos Dwarfs are on all 3 objectives in a position to secure everything right now. The center is only weakly held with just the Wolf Raiders, but let's see. Very interesting how both these players are kind of playing up around the sides right now and really just forsaking the center. So let's see how it develops over time.
Yeah, that middle can be a death trap if you're not careful, just because of that extreme hill leading up to the sides. And those magma cannons have a lovely arc of fire up on those cliffs.
Yes, they do. And let's see if they're able to start dropping some shots on the Ogre's formation. Right now, they're sort of pointing in odd directions, but...
Speaking of the magma cannons, one thing that might be worth talking about real quick as we're waiting for the players to kind of get in position is the new... So there's an upgrade you can actually take on these war machines, that Hellbound upgrade. Would you mind kind of telling people a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if the unit's hit points are above 25%, it gets 20% physical resistance, perfect vigor, and also gets magic attacks, which applies to both its melee and ranged damage. The physical resistance in particular is really helpful if you're having to artillery trade with another factions, cannons or bolt throwers or whatever. And perfect vigor is also something that's really strong, say, for the trains, right? Because charging uses a lot of vigor, and vigor also gives you pretty significant speed debuffs. So for units that are cycle charging a lot, right, that are doing a lot of hit and run attacks, charge in, pull away, rinse, repeat, which the trains definitely want to be doing that as much as possible. That perfect vigor is huge because they can just keep doing that until the cows come home. I mean, the flaming cows come home. even doubly so for the full-on Dreadquake train, because shooting also uses up quite a bit of vigor as well. So that perfect vigor is super, super important for, I would say it's probably the most important, also happens to be the most expensive, you know, variant of the war machines for Chaos Dwarfs. So the physical resistance and perfect vigor definitely super important on something of that price. Not to mention you can heal them too, right?
Yes, and the fun thing about Hellbound War Machines is it actually is optional. You can toggle it off for all of the War Machines if you want to save some extra money at the risk of less defense and no perfect vigor and all that jazz.
Right, right. Like if you're expecting to not have to artillery trade, or say like on the magma cannons, I mean, they're going to shoot, but you don't really need them for their melee stats, right? So, I mean, the perfect vigor is not going to be nearly as important for them as it would for the other units. Do the Kadai also have this? I know they count as Hellforged, so you can heal them, but
they do not have Hellbound. No, Hellbound is exclusive to the War Machines.
Okay, great clarification. Appreciate that. And
speaking of War
right
Machines,
now,
that Sorcerer Prophet is taking a little bit of a... He's taking some shrapnel to the face from that Iron Blaster.
yeah. It's got a few connections on him, a few solid connections on him. 590 damage value so far is pretty solid. I mean, it does need to get quite a bit more damage to pay for itself, but it still has half of its ammunition left, so it has the capacity to do so, certainly. The magma cannons also, I don't think, have really got much value at all. Yeah, 78 value on this one. And if we take a look at this other one here, if I can pull the unit card, 75 value. So really nothing to write home about so far. The magma cannons, so the main component, I mean, obviously the shot itself does damage, but you'll see, I'll sort of hover over this next one. As it lands, it sort of leaves this little flaming vortex on the ground that will continue to deal damage to any unit inside of it, right? But because the ogres are monstrous infantry, their units are very spread out, and they're just less models, they don't end up taking as much damage from the magma cannon. So, you know, out of any matchup to potentially not bring the magma cannon, this might be the only one right now where I wouldn't. Maybe take the Death Shrieker instead, or maybe just forsake artillery entirely and just go for a full-on melee build. But looks like the ogres are getting hungry. Yeah, they smell soup. And really, it's just the superheated metal of the magma cannons, but to them it smells like soup, so... Oh man, looks like...
Hey man, the Firebellies deeply approve of magma drinking. They are here, they are here to binge.
It's a spicy drink. Yeah, we do see Flaming Sword of Ruin coming down for the Chaos Dwarfs. Very interesting, just for the raw damage spike against the bulls that charge here into the center. We got some bull-on-bull action. Ooh, the Man-Eaters are coming in now, though, with their anti-large bonus. That should be very nice and little rear charge action against the bull centaurs. Oh yeah, looking good there. And Tim the Wilder should be able to secure that center objective. Meanwhile, on the sort of home objective of the ogres, they're still struggling. A lot of Chaos Dwarfs here. The Blazing Beards, several units of bull renders. The Infernal Guards also, just regular Infernal Guards. Interesting. They're essentially like rank 8 Longbeards, but a little bit angrier. Yeah.
And that magma cannon is getting some really nice shots into that big center melee. Like, those Man-Eaters are taking a beating from that.
Yeah, once they're all bunched up into combat, it definitely gets a lot better damage. The explosion's able to hit more models, and the little vortex it leaves. But here comes some... Oh yeah, one of my favorite units, I'm going to be honest. The Hashed's Dark Ravagers also charging into the center. So the Chaos Dwarfs committing a lot of value right there. Still not able to take that objective, but definitely trying their absolute hardest.
Wow, that Iron Blaster just, like, insta-killed about 2 of those Hashed's Dark Ravagers.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Blast them in the face.
Stuff. Yeah, that is very, very brutal stuff. That Iron Blaster is, again, very dangerous. Multi-shot cannon, basically. The Sorcerer Prophet's trying to kind of cycle charge in here a little bit, but with the Sky Striders in the immediate vicinity, I think that's a crazy dangerous idea. I mean, his little Sky Bull there, what's that, the Bale Taurus? Yes, the lower tier one. That's the Great Taurus, right? I always get confused because I want to say the Great
Yeah,
Taurus
so,
is the
yeah.
higher tier one because it's so great.
It's a little misleading. Great Taurus means non-flammable baby one, and then you've got the Bale Taurus, which is the very, very on fire molten lava one.
Okay. That makes sense. I see, and it always confuses me, but when you put it that way, that helps clear things up a little bit.
Something kind of interesting I noticed here is that magma cannon, if that had been a regular war machine, those saber tusks would have been able to take it out really easily in that little time they had on it. But here, they only got maybe like, what, a fifth of its health before they got chased off?
Yep. And that means, again, it goes back to show those single entity artillery pieces are just so strong. It's also why, like, Empire mortar wagons, although some people might think of that unit as a little bit of a meme, I actually quite like them. But oh no, just as prophesied, the Demon Smith Sorcerer gets wrecked by those Sky Striders, so he's off the field. It's a pretty big loss for the Chaos Dwarfs. Let's see if he actually gets fully shattered here. Looks like he might be able to escape and come back, which would be pretty important, could possibly cast some more spells. But Ogres are in a very good position right now, Sotek.
Yeah, they are kind of cleaning shop. That center objective has been completely gutted. They've got little unit of trappers watching the third one, and they've got kind of a full surround on the Chaos Dwarfs. Like, the Chaos Dwarfs are relying very heavily on those magma cannons, but they're just not able to take advantage like they would against large infantry hordes against these ogres.
Yeah, and those man-eaters too are doing a great job. One of them I can see is almost to their healing cap, so they've been tanking damage very efficiently, probably just eating magma cannon shots and eating lots of healing as well, and eating all sorts of different things, to be honest. But yeah, the one too that's at its healing cap is getting pretty close to paying for itself, so the man-eaters have been super important here to kind of push back the bulls. But
yeah, I mean, they've got the stat line to kind of make up for that. It's like, sure, but they don't have, they're not, that anti-large is still going to hurt, but they've got enough good stats to still trade pretty effectively.
Yeah, in fact, let's look. These bull centaurs, they're what, 37, 39, 37 on attack and defense. If we took a look at the man-eaters, they're what, 41, 43. So just overall, their sustained melee stats being better definitely helps them out. And yeah, I mean, they're a little bit slower, but the healing also is a huge component as well. Of course, Chaos Dwarfs don't have any way of healing the Bull Centaurs, so they just have to kind of eat their damage. But speaking of eating damage, the Iron Blaster gets another shot on the Demon Smith Sorcerer, and it looks like he's probably done for.
He is out of here. I don't think, or he's about to die. Yeah. One of the two.
One of the two. Let's see. The tension is rising. Will the Iron Blaster commit its last shot? Honestly, I'd probably save it, but at the same time, oh, he goes for it. He gets it. Oh,
boom! Down he goes.
There it is. He got it. With that big leadership debuff for the Chaos Dwarfs, let's see if it ends up kind of cascading into a big chain route. Right now, they're doing well enough on this kind of forward engagement here that they're able to hold at the very least for the time being. Oh, Drazoath came out here. I didn't even realize he came out here as a straight-up Foot Lord with no spells, just his raw stats. Oh, he's also got that melee attack buff.
Yeah, you got little Gordas running around too.
Oh, I didn't even notice him. He is so sneaky. Where was
all these sneaky legendary characters wandering onto the battlefield. I think it might be a little too late.
Yeah, unfortunately so. And I don't remember exactly the capture weight, but I don't believe that the heroes, honestly, on foot have that great a capture weight. I don't 100% remember. But regardless, at this point, Tim the Wilder ahead on damage by about 2,000 points. Very much ahead on objective captures and positions. Not quite ahead on victory tickets, but, I mean, in a very commanding position to try and take home the win here. He's got more units on the field as well, so things are looking quite rough for the Chaos Dwarfs right now.
Yeah, it really seems like those man-eaters made such a huge difference, because it seems like they can really just kind of throw down, like, they've got 26 bonus versus large. Like, they are happy, more than happy, to go to town on those Bull Centaur renders and trade hits with them.
Oh, yeah. And with the Iron Blaster to back him up, it was a very potent combination. Tim the Wilder takes the win there and goes up 1-0 on the series. Great replay. Love to see some beautiful big-bellied ogres just having a great time. And yeah, I mean, we see on the army damage values that the Man-Eaters and the Iron Blaster definitely carried very hard. The Bulls, I mean, some of them are going to pay for themselves, some of them are not. They're kind of just your main line of infantry, right? So you would expect more or less that from them. But yeah, the rest of the build pretty much does what it needs to support those few key units in taking home the win. For Drakens here, I mean, on the one hand, I kind of understand going for the forward push, but I'm not sure tactically if that was the best decision. I'm not an expert in domination by any means. My expertise is much higher in land battles, but it certainly was a decision, and I'm not sure that it was the best decision, but he certainly did put up a good fight for himself.
I agree with what you kind of said earlier of I think he would have been much better served with like going with the demolition rockets from the Death Shrieker, because he would have had that kind of upper angle to fire at, so he wouldn't have needed to worry so much about positioning. It felt like he spent a lot of that early battle getting his magma cannons into position on the high hill, and even then they still couldn't see a lot of the things they wanted to shoot at until it was way too late in the game.
Yeah, and I mean the damage they contributed, let's see here. Yeah, neither of them paid for themselves, so the Death Shrieker rocket, it's pretty expensive also, but it can trade very well against the Iron Blaster because of that ridiculously high angle of fire. It's like it's a huge arc, so you could park it pretty much anywhere on the battlefield, and it can hit pretty much any other target, so...
Yeah, the demolition rocket, the anti-large one, heat seeks too, so it's actually pretty hard to dodge.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been a great counter for the Iron Blaster, potentially, but... It is what it is. We are now ready to go on to Game 2's picks and bans. So
yeah, let's see what we got in the pipe here.
Drakens on the block for his picks. He's got Dark Elves, Ogre Kingdoms, and Empire. Going to ban the Order Dwarves. Tim the Wilder picks Norska and bans Empire, which makes me a little bit sad. I'm a big Empire enjoyer, and Empire is also very good against Norska, so I 100% understand why he would ban that. Draken's then going to go with the Dark Elves, making their first appearance today on stream. Definitely a very strong faction, so we'll just wait for that to get loaded on up. Dark Elves, obviously, and Norska, very long and storied history of murdering each other, no doubt.
Oh, sorry. Yes, they do. I was like, oh man, I really like the little graphics they have for the for the little picks and bans. I was too busy enjoying that. Yes, Norska and Dark Elves. To say not so much Norska specifically, though Dark Elves do raid it a lot, but the Hung tribe and the Kurgan, but mostly the Hung, are quite infamous for harassing Nagaroth. There was even a very famous escapade where they got so annoying to the Dark Elves, Malekith himself got involved, and he whooped up on an army of those tribes of chaos, and then ordered for a bunch of them to be hooked up to chariots and dragged all of them still alive all the way back to the border of Nagaroth, so that there was just this massive trail of blood across the land, so Malekith could show this line, you don't cross this line, you stay off this line. And the tribes behaved themselves for a couple centuries after that.
It's so metal. It's so Malekith, too. Just literally painting, like, don't cross here. And when you said hooked up to the chariots, for a minute I was thinking, like, pulling the chariots, and I got a little bit excited for some true Surtha Ek action, but...
no, they went with the more skin-flaying version.
I see. Well, let's see how they do here if any skin gets flayed by this nasty sorceress. Here's Supreme Sorceress of Dark up on a dragon, basically like a discount Malekith. We've got Dark Riders with repeater crossbows here, and then through the rest of the army, Blackguard of Nagarond, one of them. We've got some Bleak Swords and some Black Ark Corsair handbows. They are defending their home turf, of course. This is the Black Ark map. Got the Hellbrunai Regiment of Renown Dread Spears as well out here with some poison. Why don't you take us through the Norskin tribe here.
Yeah, so Norska going really, really wide. We have a lot of Marauders on the battlefield. We got some Marauders with great weapons, 2 regular Marauders, and some Marauder Spears down on the lower ground, though they do have a Marauder Champion unit to help bolster them. And then on the top ground, we've got lots of Javelins. Looks like 3 units of Javelins. We got a unit of Ice Wolves already running around doing some harass. Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, reminding that dragon to keep her distance. And then couple of Marauders backed up by another unit of Marauder Champions, 2 units in fact, maybe 3, yes 3, and some Marauder Spearmen. I will say I almost feel it's kind of dangerous when you fight Norska, because there's no banner difference between regular Marauders and Champion Marauders, so it's really easy not to realize that you're going against a much scarier unit than you think you are.
It happens to me too much, Sotek. Far too much. And it looks like, is that Wulfric? It is. Wulfric the Wanderer on a horse comes out.
He's brought his boat
in disguise. He does have Lore of Boats and Hunter of Champions. Lore of Boats, of course, being one of the strongest spells in the game.
He's literally just a D&D barbarian. He's like, I cast boat! And just throws it. But hey, it works.
Wulfric. It does work. And let's see here. Wulfric's going to come forward, kind of send those repeater crossbows scattering away. They can't fire on the move. Speaking of Lore of Boats, swing and a miss there. Did not get any contact on those handbows, unfortunately.
That's unfortunate.
But yeah, it's okay. I mean, Wulfric is not crazy cheap, but he's cheap enough that he could get resummoned, potentially. As long as he gets retreated with enough HP to actually get some sort of refund, it could actually be reasonably cost-effective to do so. So it's not the biggest loss in the world, but let's see. Oh no, it looks like Tim the Wilder's got a Dread Column formation. One of these Hunter Javelins just queuing up in a double file line to try and get into the concert here. But...
Man, they are very scared of those Corsair handbows. Understandably, those suckers hurt if they get off a big volley.
Yes, they do. And not only that, but their melee stats are actually really nice. 32 weapon strength, 32, 28 attack and defense with 80 armor. So they're definitely not pushovers by any means. With the Ice Wolves, they're going to try it.
I love that Norska got the new horses for Chaos, especially Wulfric looks sick on that horse, and it's so big and scary. It's got great combat animations. It's just lovely. Oh, he dodged the Soul Stealer. Good job on that, Wulfric.
Big Soul Stealer. Yeah, gets a good chunk of those Ice Wolves and gets Feral Manticore. Wulfric going to pop his debuff. He was not in that AoE when it popped off, but I understand tactically to get rid of those Ice Wolves is super important, and oh, some nasty volleys also landing on that Marauder Horseman as well, just doing some severe damage.
He needs to be getting as many javelins as he can into that dragon, but I think they're going to be too far away to take advantage of the Hunter of Champions debuff.
Yeah, it does debuff armor a little bit, but it's not a super long-lasting debuff, so it does wear off relatively quickly. It looks like Drakens is succeeding in kind of drawing Tim the Wilder out in this kind of kite, but he is taking some pretty serious damage in the process.
Where did Fate of Buna come from? Oh, there's a Death Shaman Sorcerer on the field now. I see.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Nice Fate of Buna. Just
I heard all that big fat chuckling. It's like, what is that noise?
Oh, man. I have to say, the VFX reworks for all the spells, kind of ongoing now with Lore of Fire, Lore of Death previously, have been really, really nice. Creative Smithy's been doing a great job.
Yeah, it makes me just excited to see more of them. I think Metal, Death, and Fire have all been redone so far, and man, they look nice. Yes,
they do. Wulfric diving in here, getting dived by the dragon. We've got another Soul Stealer coming in. That's going to hit him and the Manticore. A couple of these Marauders, even Champions, moving in to reinforce. The Champions should actually do a pretty decent job. Even though they don't have armor piercing, they just have good enough stats that the what are they? Cold One Knights, that's right.
That dragon does not appreciate all those javelins to the face.
No, definitely not, and neither will the Cold One Knights, but they're still doing some pretty good damage in the meantime. Wulfric's definitely taking a beating, and the Manticore also has taken some pretty significant damage. Right now, the Blackheart are just being held back in a defensive position, but Drakens is kind of just getting rushed down right now. I mean, he's responding in many ways. That Dragon Breath attack was a pretty brutal miss, though. I think it did not hit those champions at all. Like, what were you looking at, Dragon?
Speaking of Dragon, she has been hunted of champions, and Wulfric is there to party.
That was a risky dive, too, right into the middle of those champs. And we've got plenty of throwing axes and javelins around as well, so definitely a dangerous situation, but it looks like some Dark Riders being pulled in off of Vanguard, some melee Dark Riders to try and get through some of those horsemen, but it's not enough. Supreme Sorceress gets eaten up and absolutely pincushioned by javelins. In honor of Heir of Carthage, happy Javelin Day to the Supreme Sorceress as she gets seen off the field here.
Well, she at least got off the ground, but that's not going to save her, I don't think.
Yeah, no, she's definitely done for. There she goes.
And down she goes. Not good for the Dark Elves there. Not good at all.
Definitely not. Tim the Wilder now has about 3,000 points advantage on damage value. So, I mean, taking out that Dragon Sorceress was huge for him. Norska definitely showing their strength, despite the fact they are, at this point, the faction, I would say, most need of a rework. They've gone the longest without any kind of significant update or rework, but their battle prowess really has never waned. I mean, they've always been fairly solid, especially their mobility, as we see here, and just the cheap, cost-effective, low-tier units, the way they can trade upwards, those javelins, just such a wonderful, wonderful piece.
Yeah, and they are really able to... I think the really nice thing about them is the Dark Elves kind of benefit very heavily from people that rely on, like, you know, very heavy pieces that, you know, either rely on a lot of armor or there's not a lot of models, so those armor-piercing handbows all over the place are able to make good effectiveness. But Norska doesn't really care. Like, they've got decent shields, they've got numbers, and they're surprisingly fast for a human faction. So a lot of those strengths of the Dark Elves against typical melee-centric factions really don't work as well against Norska.
Yes, I would even go to say that Norska has much better mobility, and Dark Elves are already a pretty fast faction overall. They've got really nice light cavalry, but the dogs and the wolves and the ice wolves, the warhounds and the marauder horsemen, even their infantry is reasonably fast. The skin wolves and everything else. It's like beastmen, but with marauders instead of gores. It's really, really tough to play against when you're up against a great player like Tim the Wilder. Hard situation to be in for sure. Right now, Drakens is holding, though, for the time being. He did manage to kind of stabilize it a little bit. The damage value hasn't got too far out of control, and he does still have control also of this forward objective, at least for the time being. But Norska starting to close its units back in here to try and recapture that, and also continuing to kind of bottle up the reinforcements as they are deployed. So it's looking good for Norska. Looks like they'll be able to take control of this Black Ark, and in the event that the Norskins were to actually capture a Black Ark, what do you think they would do with it, Loremaster of Sotek?
Well, I think they would either start a world tour company, kind of like Archaon did when he took a Black Ark during his saga, where you just sort of say, all right, we're the captains now. It's got giant sea monsters, all sorts of cool stuff, and you just go raiding around. Though, knowing Norska, I feel like they would instead be like, oh, look, giant sea monsters, and would start fighting them instead down in the depths. And would probably just either sacrifice the Black Ark to one of the Dark Gods, which I'm curious how many points that would get you in campaign. But that should count, right? It's basically a settlement.
You're right. It's a settlement on the water, and I would imagine at least the Chaos Gods would be very happy if you burned it and then sank it or something to that effect, you know?
Oh yeah, you gotta give kudos to the Norskins for that.
Oh yeah, and they're certainly trying their best right now. They still haven't quite got control of this objective, and even the cheeky little Hellebronai out on the far objective too, trying to capture that. I love that play by Drakens, just to keep Tim the Wilder on his toes, force him to deploy some reinforcements there to make sure he can stabilize the situation. But the Dark Elves are not going quietly into that good night. They've actually sort of fought back on the army damage value now. They're only down a little over 1,000. and it's looking a little bit better for them. They've got pretty good battlefield control with a lot of units on the field. Norska, Tim the Wilder, kind of ended up overextending a little bit as he was trying to fight units near Draken's deployment zone, so we could see a little bit of a comeback here by Drakens. He's definitely in a position where he wants to keep fighting, does not want to try and give up or anything like that at this point.
Yeah, Norska definitely said no as far as that bottom objective is concerned. But maybe the Dark Elves will have some better luck further north.
Yeah, the Marauder Great Weapon's easily able to come in and just wipe away those Hellebroni, but even still, just those Marauder Horsemen are over, or the Marauder Great Weapons rather, are over there now. It's going to take them a while to get anywhere else, so we'll see. These Dark Riders might try and squeak past them and even continue to kind of harass that location. As the Dark Elves' main push comes forward, we've still got plenty of Corsairs, reasonably healthy. They're actually below quarter HP Blackguard, but you know, they still got 35 elves there. They can fight at least a little bit.
Yeah, it's not gonna be easy. I mean, the Norska does still have characters running around, and I think Dark Elves are still feeling from that penalty of their sorceress going down, so they're gonna be breaking a little easier than they would normally, which is not great.
Definitely. That said, Tim the Wilder does have to 3-cap in order to win here. Drakens really can just hold the one objective and still win. So Tim the Wilder, you know, in the next few minutes is going to need to rally some forces together and go take that objective number 2. Otherwise, he's facing a loss on victory tickets, even though he's still ahead a little bit on army damage value. But credit to Drakens here for fighting back even after losing the Supreme Sorceress, really just scrapping it out, not giving up, and he's almost completed the comeback. We'll see. Let's see if he's able to hold on to this final objective. It looks like the Norskins are starting to close in. Some of the Dark Elf units are being withdrawn so they can heal and then be resummoned back in. The Corsairs especially, I mean, we talk a little bit about infantry speed today, and in general, speed is one of the most important attributes for domination. It's generally an important attribute in Total Warhammer in all situations, but domination especially, to be able to get your units where they need to be at the right time. It's just so important. But let's see, Norska's closing the gap. Can they get it done in time?
Yeah, we do see here Norska is like they're very close to getting that triple cap they're really gonna want to have. The Dark Elves are sitting very nicely. They're so close to that 1,500 points, but they don't really have much of an army left, and Norska actually has done a great job consolidating their forces. So it's gonna be interesting to see that objective 2 needs to stay in Dark Elf control if Drakens is gonna try and pull out a win here.
Yep, and it's gonna be close. I mean, he's got lots of handbows here to defend. A unit of Witch Elves even too is a really nice pick at this late game to try and just burst down some of this infantry that's coming to reinforce, but they are gonna take some damage from the javelins. Manticore also kind of interrupts their charge. They're still gonna just absolutely murder these Marauders though.
Yeah, Witch Elves, there are a few units as good at spanking low armor targets as Witch Elves are.
Yeah, they are. They're doing a decent job, but the Manticore actually is providing some really nice stabilization in that engagement. Dark Riders come in. They're going to try and interrupt some of these reinforcements, get a nice charge on those Marauder Horsemen. Marauder Spearmen also won't be able to get onto the objective. So yeah, it's looking super close. Just about a minute left or so for Tim the Wilder to try and capture this objective, but he does have forces incoming. It's going to be super close, Loremaster Sotek.
Yeah, I mean it's ticking now, but I think if you're if you're Drakens at this point, I think your goal is just to spam someone as much as possible, get it on the objective, because as long as it's fresh, you know, each of those bodies counts. As long as you're not allowing it to be going in Norska control. So
yeah, that Manticore really needs to get in and get some terror routes going. It did just on the one Dark Rider there, but it was kind of lingering in the air for a few seconds. That might have been critical. We'll see. Norska's ticking up the objective. We've got more Dark Riders swooping in. Will it be enough? More, Witch Elves coming back from route as well. But look at this. Oh, the Ice Wolves in Dread Column formation. More Spearmen coming through, throwing axes. Oh, it's going to be close.
Yeah, Norska, if you're Norska right now, your goal is not really to get kills, but just to get more units on the objective. Because if you have enough guys, it'll capture faster if you have overwhelming force. And right now, he's kind of focusing a little bit on like chasing down fleeing units, and that just doesn't matter right now.
Yeah, everything definitely needs to be on the objectives. There's just 10 seconds left. I don't think he's going to be able to get it in time. Oh, it's so close. Oh my goodness. Oh no.
Oh, Dark Elves pull it by literally the tip of their big, tall, spiky hats.
Wow. Just barely Drakens is able to hang on there for the win. Tim the Wilder, so close to glory. Oh man, absolutely just razor thin margin of victory there. But yeah, had Tim the Wilder had literally 1 or 2 more seconds, he could have pulled out the capture and definitely pulled out the win. I mean, I say definitely. It's possible Drakens could have come back and at least recapped one objective for a short amount of time, but it was looking pretty good for Tim the Wilder there. But unfortunately, just gets capped on objectives. On the army breakdown screen here, I mean, Marauder Champs, love the pick there. They are all very cost effective generally. And then a lot of the mobile units is where I would expect to see the value for Norska. And yeah, Manticore pays for itself. Beast of Tashnar doing a nice job. Wolfric also good value on the Deathcaster. And for Drakens, I mean, the handbows are really the carry here, I think. Yeah, just really high value on them. And
yeah, and that
also
kind of goes to show what makes Domination so kind of unique is that, I mean, the Dark Elves were getting absolutely obliterated there after the Sorceress went down. Like, they were having such a hard time bouncing back from that kind of major slaughter, but they had really strong objective control, and it was just too big of a gap, and Norska just didn't. They literally just needed 2 more seconds, if that, to potentially pull that back, but the Dark Elves just kept flooding the board. And that's all you got to do.
Yep, those Dark Riders too. I mean, they were resummoned multiple times, each paid for themselves twice, the melee Dark Riders, so just fantastic, really. And that does force now to a game 3 between these two. So let's get to those picks. Drakens, once again on the block, picks Empire, Bretonia, and Ogre Kingdoms. He's going to ban Khorne. Very smart pick, so hopefully we'll get to see some humans. Tim the Wilder picks Warriors of Chaos. He's going to ban Bretonia, which is really interesting to me. I think for the high-level players in Domination, Bretonia seems really strong right now, actually, because their cavalry is so strong. But anyway,
yeah,
so I understand.
Oh, no, go ahead with your picks and bans.
Then I was just going to say, to finish up, Drakens picks the Empire, so my human enjoyer heart will get to see at least one Empire game today. That makes me very happy.
So about Bretonia, there's kind of a lot of changes coming with patch 3.0 as far as like how a lot of units are performing. If I recall correctly, cavalry and chariots are kind of a brave new world in some ways. Is that right?
Yes, so there was pretty wide-ranging cavalry and chariot buffs, especially to mass, because of the way that the mass is such an important component of calculations now, with, you know, high mass units like cavalry and monstrous infantry and chariots hitting infantry. The mass buffs were for Bretonia specifically, I want to say that the Pegasus units were buffed. I think Hippogriffs also got more mass.
Yes.
So it was mostly focused in their flying units because in Lance formation, Bretonia already had the heaviest mass cavalry in the game. It was not this patch. A few patches ago, they made Lance formation increase the unit's mass, which was a really great change, if you ask me.
Yes.
And so there was that. There was also, like, I know Wild Riders, for example, got a mass buff. Pretty much all chariots in the game got a mass buff, including, like, Volkmar, for example, like some legendary character chariots. I think Cetra's Chariot of the Gods. Yeah, right. He got on a bulking program, just Hulkmar, you know.
Yeah, you bulk up for Sigmar. It's what he would have wanted.
Definitely. And I think we are pretty much ready to load up the game, so we'll just get that going here. Yeah, then
awesome. This is a classic matchup. I love Warriors of Chaos versus Empire. It is It is like,
yes.
I mean, it's kind of the poster child for a lot of Warhammer Fantasy storylines.
Absolutely. Definitely one of the... In terms of like what makes Warhammer sort of Warhammer, in my opinion, definitely the unique aesthetic of chaos and kind of the way they're portrayed, and the Empire too, being sort of in its specific portrayal, for me is just like peak Warhammer, you know?
Yeah. So you love your Empire, boys. You want to take us to the army?
Absolutely. We've got Boris the Todd up in the air. Boris Toddbringer, of course, has really nice items. Regeneration on his Griffin. He's also got Hold the Line here. He's got Crush the Weak, so that he gives a debuff to low leadership units nearby, units with less than 50% leadership base. Did not take the White Cloak of Ulrich, but also has option to take that. In terms of the rest of the army here, we've got some Huntsmen for some stock anti-large shooting, Spearmen and Swordsmen with great swords to back them up. Got the Bright Wizard as well. Let's take a look. Probably just Burning Head here. Flamestorm, actually. Very cool. Flamestorm did get rework, buff in many ways. It's a lot
so
more
much better
reliable.
now. It's so much better now.
Oh, yeah. The pathing is just like... It makes a lot more sense. It doesn't just wander off into oblivion. So, that's pretty good. Why don't you take us through the Warriors of Chaos here?
All right, so we've got my absolute favorite Chungus, who's always just excited to be everywhere. Dr. Festus has arrived to tend to people's ills. He's bringing with him a Stream of Corruption and Miasma of Pestilence. So, Stream of Corruption, very solid spell. Very, very nice. When you overcast especially, got really good armor-piercing values. And he is here to provide the heals for the Ecstatic Legion. We've also got some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, providing some early skirmish if needed, though Chaos is very warily pulling back from a lot of that early Empire play. We've also got armored Chaos Trolls backed up by a few units of Chaos Warriors hiding in the forest with Festus, along with Marauders keeping that far flank. And then over by the kind of ocean stream here, we've got another 2 units of Chaos Warriors backed up by armored Chaos Trolls. Armored Chaos Trolls showing up in force, which are a very cool unit. You don't get to see them too much because they're exclusive to the Warriors of Chaos, but they really do bring some nastiness to the field with that 110 armor on top of their troll region.
Yes, it's very good. And one thing, too, sort of referring back to cavalry and chariots, also applies to monstrous infantry. So they made a change to the way infantry knockdown works. Previously, infantry models couldn't really be hurt as much if they were knocked down. You would see that a lot, especially with infantry characters. Now, though, unit models can be hurt when they're knocked down, so it's essentially a buff to all high mass units, like all monstrous infantry, cavalry, and chariots.
Yeah, that is huge. That's a huge change for damage.
Yes, and even big single entity monsters too. It should affect to a smaller degree, but I think probably the units that benefit from it most are monstrous infantry. There were already quite a few before who were pretty good. Like, I was even seeing armored chaos trolls a little bit before this patch, but I think might be a little bit too early to make this kind of prediction, but I do think in this patch you will see a lot of monstrous infantry for any factions that can take them, whether that be ogres or trolls or, you know, chaos spawns, you name it.
Great.
Minotaurs.
I'm going to hate chaos spawn more than I already do. Delightful.
Oh man, just get some Zinj spawn, just taking away your armor and smashing tentacles into your face. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
I'm going to have to try out... I'm curious how Kroxgors feel now with those changes, because they are definitely big knockover boys.
My guy, let me tell you something. I played a game with Kroxgors the other day against Flying Taco, who is one of the competitors in this tournament. We were just playing some land battles just for fun, and I have to say I had the best game I've had with Kroxgors in a very long time. The Cohort of Waddle in particular, I don't know if you saw, but they actually have the dazed contact effect now, which debuffs melee defense and
that's
speed.
Cool.
So, yeah,
that
it makes
is
them
so much better. I did not know that. That is delightful.
Yep. I think they got a direct stat buff too. I want to say they got maybe more melee attack directly, or was it melee defense? One of the two. And I think regular Kroxgors also got a buff. So yeah, You're going to enjoy playing with Croc scores in this patch, my friend.
Been doing too much Chaos Dwarf stuff. It's time for me to. It's time to return to my jungles.
Reject Chaos, now we return to Lizard.
Yeah. All right. So I'm curious what Chaos is waiting for precisely. I mean, there's triple cap now, and the Empire's now a third of the way to victory. Oh, here he goes.
Yep, he was just building up his forces, got more, more Chaos Trolls. He's got Forsaken, Marauder Great Weapons mixed in here. He's got some Marauder Horsemen now. So Tim the Wilder was just basically putting together his army. He's now got almost a full 20 stack. And the Forsaken in particular should trade very well into the Empire State Troops. They do have to be careful of great swords, but let's see what Drakens has brought out here. Oh, here comes the Sun! The Sunmaker deploys out of the back of the deployment there, and all of a sudden, the points that Drakens was saving makes a lot more sense. And let's watch as these rockets open up onto the Warriors of Chaos. They should be able to dump their ammo very quickly.
Rip them.
Yeah.
They almost dodged all of it.
Yeah, here comes another volley. That should... Ooh, the overshot's going to hit those Chaos Knights, too, of Slaanesh. Very nice. The Chaos Knights of Slaanesh, of course, have devastating flanker, and they also have physical resistance. They have less physical resistance. Mark of Slaanesh did get a necessary nerf.
I am so glad about that. It was way too high before. 5% is much more reasonable.
Yes, definitely. And it's still very strong. They have Strider as well, which is, I think, unique to the Slaanesh Knights, if I'm not mistaken, which is really, really strong, actually. But, yeah, so far the Rockets getting some nice volleys. Here we go. Melee engagement about to get underway here as the Trolls start to collapse on this flank. Got lots of halberds out for the Empire now. I love that he's fighting under the banner of Midland as well. It's very, very appropriate here. Just going to keep a nice wide view as these armies clash here. Wow, look at those Marauder Horsemen getting, or Marauders rather, getting exploded by grenade launchers. We've got some Demigryph Knights also on this far left flank of the Empire. On the right flank, just kind of absorbing the charge of the Marauders and whatnot. Boris gets a charge then into the Chaos Trolls to counteract them, get a quick terror route, see them off the field, and here comes the Flame Storm. Ripping through that front line, absolutely devastating those Chaos Warriors. Going to turn treacherous and maybe kill some of those swordsmen as well. Hard to say. Oh, it's like moving back towards the Empire lines. That's so scary. I would be absolutely terrified to be one of those spearmen right now. Just flame storm like 10 feet in front of you. Oh, they're going to run through it. Okay. Yes.
And the general's like, all right, get going. It'll be fine. Just run through it. Sigmar protects, yada yada.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's going pretty good for the Empire so far. Really nice stream of corruption in the backline, though, to hit those great swords that are being held in reserve. But look at that. The Sunmaker has dumped off almost all of its ammunition already. The great thing about Domination, too, is you can unsummon it for a refund, so it doesn't even necessarily have to fully pay for itself, but it already has with 1,800 damage value and climbing. So, yeah, the Empire, look at that value trade, almost double the army damage value onto Chaos than Chaos has been able to deal to the Empire, but they are responding. We've got that Miasma of Pestilence on those Demigryph Knights to debuff their melee attack, and it looks like the Hounds are getting back into the Outriders in the back line, trying to shut them down, but quickly are routed off. Ooh, yeah,
man,
definitely.
We're going to see another Flamestorm. Unleashing the hurt in the bottom.
Oh, another Flamestorm, too, right in the center. Wow, that is possibly going to kill, like, all those Halberdiers, but right now it's just kind of hanging out right on top of Chaos, and there it goes now through the Empire lines, finishing off those great swords. Man, I just love the chaos of Flamestorm. Like, no pun intended. But.
Yes. Well, it actually feels like a proper, like, yes, this is the big bad spell in the lore of fire, and it actually feels like that now. Man, Chaos is really doing a good job just pushing through this Empire line.
Yes, they are. Despite the absolute shellacking they're taking from the rockets and from the Flamestorm and everything else, it's severe damage, but they're persevering through. And Tim the Wilder's still got push ongoing, the Chaos Trolls in the center, but I like the fact that Boris came over to support the Demigryph Knights, debuff those Chaos Knights of Slaanesh. They're getting hit by that Crush the Weak right now, and, you know, plenty of supporting spears and whatnot, try and shore up the leadership of these state troops that are kind of wavering right now. So let's see if the Empire is able to hold out in this engagement. The center is also basically a wash right now. Maybe Chaos actually taking the lead with those Trolls regenerating very heavily. But yeah, despite
Dr. Festus is going up against good old Toddy here, which is, but he's got a lot of Chaos Knights in support. Oh, the Reichsguard have arrived. Or no, those are Empire Knights.
Empire Knights come on in to save the day, try and rout those armored Chaos Trolls. We've also got some Hellstriders. Slaanesh coming in here for the Warriors, trying to clean up some of the Empire units and make sure they stay routing. But more Empire Knights being deployed right now. We've got a second unit of grenades online as well. The Empire is dealing out such huge damage, but Tim the Wilder is just taking it right now and is able to sustain through the damage very effectively so far and get a full-on triple cap. Let's see if the Empire is able to respond, maybe get some cavalry up onto that objective number 1 here. But it's looking tough for the Empire right now. Despite all the damage they've done, they're still struggling.
Yeah, Festus is proving to be quite the problem. With, like, he's just leaving on his damage AoE. He's got plenty of trolls, so he's still getting regen even when he's in damage mode. And that Stream of Corruption Overcast just does so much damage, like, to groups of knights and stuff. It hurts.
Yep. And Festus already over 200 kills, almost 3,000 damage value. So he is an absolute beast. Empire did not take any tools to directly deal with him. And, I mean, Boris, in this situation, can't effectively cycle charge him to death. So it's looking tough here for the Empire, despite that initial damage and, you know, the Sunmaker and everything else. It's not going to be the easiest.
No, those Chaos Forces are everywhere. I mean, there are Hellstriders now all over the battlefield messing things up. And Hellstriders are annoying because if you do not get them under control, they start stacking those buffs and they become real difficult to deal with.
Yes, they are big pain, and they're so fast too. They're really hard to catch or deal with in, you know, with any kind of stationary units. You really need your own mobility to deal with them. And here, the Empire Knights weren't really able to get an effective charge. So, yeah, all of a sudden, Tim the Wilder is closing the door in terms of army damage, and that's pretty much spelling disaster for the Empire. Not sure they're going to be able to salvage this situation. We'll see, but it's not looking super hopeful right now, despite that just amazingly spectacular start.
Yeah, he had a really solid opening, but it almost kind of felt like the Empire front line just didn't have the staying power it needed to deal with the just the mass trolls backing up all the Warriors of Chaos. Like, there was just so much heavy armor coming in.
Yep, and I mean, I like the pick of the Flamestorm. It's definitely done some pretty serious damage, but it must be said that it did also do some serious friendly damage as well, you know? So it maybe contributed into that Empire line falling apart a little bit faster. But let's see, the Empire's kind of pushing a little bit of a counter push right now, putting together some units to try and pull back and get on one of these objectives. He's still got some time, too, to work. I mean, Tim the Wilder's got a triple cap right now, but let's see if he's able to hold on to it.
I'm sure the Empire is very glad they had their triple clap as long as they did, because Chaos is still only just now catching up. Ooh, Boris is in trouble.
Yep. A little bit of a debuff there. The Miasma of Pestilence gets closed on by Trolls. The Manticore, Festus. Even though, you know, individually he's superior to all of those units, when they're all teamed up like that, he just cannot absolutely handle it. So Spearman moving in to try and screen and support there. I don't know that that's really going to be enough to turn things around, but let's see. I mean, he's putting together some units to try and take this one objective here. Empire Knights and the state troops got some great swords moving in as well, but it looks like Tim the Wilder is going to respond by just bringing the house with all the trolls and other units moving towards this objective.
Yeah, it seems like the kitchen sink's kind of getting thrown at Toddy now. These objectives.
Yep, Toddy is nearing his healing cap as well, so even if he wanted to contribute more, it's not like he could necessarily. Knights of Slaanesh coming back in as well. I think, did they actually get a rear charge on those great swords? Definitely doing some solid damage. The Trolls approaching their healing cap as well. They have just been so important to Tim the Wilder's success, but let's see. Draken's not out of this yet. He is slowly recapturing this objective. At least it was ticking up momentarily. We've got some Forsaken inbound, though. We've got reasonably decent speed. 46, actually very good speed for infantry. We're able to close the distance and get to this objective and try and take it back. Empire also reinforcing, but yep, looks like they're going to throw in the towel there. So I love the pick of the Empire by Drakens. Unfortunately, it does not work out for him, and Tim the Wilder's slow push with Festus ends up winning the day. Festus, 3,700 damage value, 35,000 damage dealt, 247 kills. Just absolutely spectacular performance by him.
Yeah, Festus was eating good today.
He is the bestest, as they say. Chaos Trolls, Armored Chaos Trolls also did a great job here. Yeah, Forsaken, love the pick of them in this matchup. The Chaos Knights of Slanesh also do a pretty decent job. Overall, I really like this Warriors of Chaos build. I mean, the initial just heavy front to kind of absorb damage, and then just building up the, some extra kind of hard-hitting damage units to really get the job done. For Empire's side, I mean, their Sunmaker was awesome, got 2,400 damage value, but was not, I don't know, it wasn't quite enough, I guess, at the end of the day. Both the grenade launchers also did quite well. It's just the melee units of the Empire, those Demigryph Knights especially, really struggled.
Yeah, it almost seems like he almost went a little too wide with his starting army. Like, he had a lot of spearmen, a lot of swordsmen, but they just instantly buckled under that Chaos Advance. Like, they did not really seem to offer up any resistance. Like, most of the spearmen are almost practically still at full health, despite they were in the starting army. Maybe it's 'cause they were
a lot of them
then,
got routed
still,
quickly.
Yeah, Festus he's a nightmare. Especially like the Warriors of Chaos, like that's just a faction that has a lot of options of what they could bring to the table, and it is very hard to counterpick them because of that.
Definitely. So with that, that's gonna finish up that series, and it's Tim the Wilder's victory. Yeah, so he gets to move on to the next round, and we get to move on to our next set of games. And I'm not gonna lie, this next pairing could have been the final. It's a little bit of a shame, in my opinion, that they were paired in the first round, because Flying Taco and Houseplant, I would say, are two of the best players in the world, and I am very much excited to get to their games.
Yeah, their reputation, like when someone even like me, who mostly does like kind of single player stuff and kind of keeps an eye on the multiplayer stuff, like I watch a lot of your streams and Turn streams and stuff, like I see those names and are like, oh yeah, yeah, like they've been kind of major players for ages, and they have not gotten worse with time at all.
Definitely. So I guess with that, let's just get straight into the picks and bans. Taco, the legendary Flying Taco, will be up first on the picks. So he's going to pick 3 Chaos Dwarfs, Lizardmen, and Ogre Kingdoms. He will ban Dark Elves. Houseplant is going to pick Chaos Dwarfs with no ban. Very bold choice. And then Taco will go with Lizardmen. So you get to see some Lizardmen today, Sotek. And it's up against the Chaos Dwarfs, no less.
I know Taco wouldn't let me down. Taco is a lizard king.
He is. He beats me with lizards on a regular basis, for sure. So we'll just wait for that to get loaded on up. Yeah, Lizardmen got a lot of really nice changes. They got tons of cost reductions on like a bunch of units. Yeah, the changes to infantry knockdown, again, really helps like their cavalry and their monstrous infantry. We talked about croc scores already. What else? I'm trying to think if anything else got direct buffs. Just in general, I mean, Lizardmen are one of those armies that, if played correctly, they are such a pain to deal with. Man, poison missiles in my face for 24 hours, please. Like,
oh yeah. They will gladly give you all the LSD blowpipe missiles you want.
Yes. We also have an Ancient Salamander here. It's a pretty good tool.
That's a very
against
interesting pick.
Yeah, you might think like, oh, Chaos Dwarfs have fire resistance, but the Ancient Salamander actually has flammable on its shooting attack, so it will negate that fire resistance and even add a little bit of extra weakness to fire on there. So I actually really like the pick. The range also at 160 outranges fire glaives. It outranges archers, right? Hobgoblin archers. Obviously outranges blunderbusses. So, and the speed as well at 75 is faster than like a bull Taurus, right? So,
Yep.
So you can use this thing to,
easy.
Yep, you can use it to kite and shoot and just ruin Chaos Dwarf's day in many ways. But let's go ahead and I guess quickly get to the builds. Why don't you talk about this Lizardman build here as they get deployed?
Sure. So marching down the center of the battlefield, we've got the centerpiece being a big old fat Dreadsaurian, which is, I think, fantastic against Chaos Dwarfs. He's a tough cookie to bring down, and certainly deals a lot of damage. We've also got lots of skink cohorts. They are fantastic in this mode because there's a lot of bodies. They're great at taking objectives. There's a Slaane's Mage Priest leading the fight. He's got Dwellers Below, always a great spell. Earthblood and Regrowth. We've also got the Ancient Salamander you talked about 3-4 skink cohorts with javelins, and 2 chameleon skinks, who are some of the best harassers in the game, so I'm always happy to see them. Already got some pterodons being summoned on the battlefield, and yeah, just kind of a lot of skinks.
Yeah, for the Chaos Dwarfs, they've gone heavy with the cavalry. Lots of bulls here. We've got bull dual weapons, bull great weapons, the Regiment of Renown here. We've got some hobgoblin missile cavalry, goblin laborers. So very much a monstrous cavalry heavy force for the time being for Houseplant. I'm curious to see how that does though against the missile fire of the Lizardmen. I mean, the armor of these guys is pretty low, and we can see one even being caught up by the Dreadsaurian. That poison speed debuff from the missiles means they're not really going to be able to escape. The little skink machine guns on the back of the Dreadsaurian are continuing to deal damage even as they run too.
Bull centaurs are running for their lives. He's here for the beef.
Oh yeah. It's like a slider, you know. It's already pre-cooked and everything.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm curious to see how this goes. I mean, the missiles of the Lizardmen certainly seem very dangerous, but the Bull Centaurs are starting to get some support here. We see the Blazing Beards coming out with their grenades, and more, looks like a Magma Cannon coming out up on the high ground. We've got
the Bull
some
Centaurs
more
do at least
Centaurs.
have that, they have what, like a 20, yeah, they have 25% missile resist base. So they don't have a lot of armor, but they are at least able to mitigate a decent amount of that skink fire. So it's not as devastating as it would be normally.
Certainly. But the great thing about skinks is the volume, right? Especially with like the javelins. We see one cohort getting routed there by the magma cannon. Unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But,
I'm sure Taco's like, yeah, please shoot your magma cannon at my skinks all day, by all means.
Yes, yes, certainly better than shooting anything more expensive like these Razor Dawns. Very interesting choice in this matchup. I love it, actually. That armor-piercing missiles seems quite strong against Chaos Dwarfs.
Yeah, and they hurt, and they got that nice arcing fire. Really, really good as like a backliner. Razor Dawns are just such a strong unit if you can position them correctly, which I often do not. But if you can, they're very good.
Yes, definitely. They're almost like a mobile short-range rattling gun in a way, and I know you're gonna hate that comparison because it's Skaven, but just the high volume. Yeah.
Well, except for they're almost better in the sense that they've got arcing fire. So like even if they want to shoot from like a weird position, they can usually land their shots.
Yes.
So a rattling cannon is going to be a lot more devastating if it actually gets you in its sights.
Yeah, potentially much higher burst, but here the Bull Centaur renders do have shields. This one up on the high ground, so they're going to be blocking some of the incoming fire of the Pterodon riders. The shielded ones in particular, I've found, because of the missile resistance and the shield, they actually take surprisingly low damage from missiles, and it's definitely the variant I would recommend in very missile-heavy matchups. Like
so they got, what, 80% missile resist against small arms because of their silver shields? That is crazy.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. It's pretty interesting. So we'll see. This unit is kind of drawing the Lizardmen away from the objective. Flying Taco might over-pursue potentially there. Let's keep an eye on that. As we also check in on the main fight in the low ground, it looks like the Bulls are ready to make their push. Just kidding. They're going to feint in, eat some javelins, but I think they're just going to charge straight in and try and overwhelm these skinks, but let's see.
And Taco is doing a really good job of just anytime the Chaos Dwarfs kind of try to prod, I mean, they just eat so many missiles to the face immediately.
Mm-hmm. He's doing a nice job kiting back with these skinks too, making sure not to get too far forward, but the Bull Centaurs are finally going to come home and try and get a melee engagement. Let's see how it plays out for them. A lot of skink missile fire in here to help support, and these Cold One Spear Riders also for a little bit of anti-large themselves. Should trade well with skink support on their own. They're going to get hard eaten up by those Bull Centaur, great weapons, but let's see here. There's no net here. It's not Mazda Mundi, it is just a Salon of Life. Mazda Mundi might have been nice in this situation, actually, for a little bit of a net. Just net down this Bull Centaur dual hand weapon, but they're right now still getting dragged down by just overwhelming skink fire and lots of numbers of stuff. This one also gets countercharged here by these Cold One Spear Riders. This is what I was talking about. 1v1, Cold One Spear Riders are going to get out-traded pretty heavily here, but kind of makes sense to a degree just to hold that unit in place as they try and focus down the rest of these. This is bad, though. Oof, those grenades just got a nasty volley into that Dread Saurian.
Yeah, luckily for the Dread Saurian, there's not too many grenades. And here goes the regrowth on him. So all that effort the Chaos Dwarfs just put into it is about to go away.
Yep. Oh, percentage-based heals on something that has like 15,000 HP is very strong, turns out. So that's going to be a huge amount of raw HP healed, but the Chaos Dwarfs push is getting pretty painful. I mean, despite the Skink's best efforts, there's still just so many bulls on the field, and given that Domination doesn't really have, you know, rules restrictions against weapon variants in the same way you would in land battles, you can take up to 9 bulls, technically, in Domination. So, yeah, we're likely to see that out of Houseplant in this particular build, which makes sense for sure. But let's see, Lizardman can withstand. 1 unit of bulls now gets terrified away by the Saurian, and the Saurian itself is still quite healthy, so silver linings for sure.
Yeah, though, like, even that thing will go down quick if it gets completely surrounded. Like, oh, we do see Temple Guard showing. I was about to say, the Lizardmen are going to probably need something with some more staying power to help deal with all these Bull Centaurs. But there are now Temple Guard coming onto the battlefield. We got Croxagors showing up. There's some much heavier lads appearing out now.
Definitely. And the Croxagors, I mean, they're going to get killed probably, but they'll at the very least be able to mass block and kind of hold back these units for the Skinks. In the one land battle that I'm going to publish between myself and Taco, that's what he was playing Chaos Dwarfs actually, and that's how I ended up beating his Bull Centaurs, was just to block them with Croxagors and then shoot them with Skinks. But right now, it's working out okay. We'll see though. The Temple Guard, it looks like, are going to try to be sent in melee. The Magma Cannon though, there's now double Magma Cannon up. That's going to really punish that Temple Guard.
Yeah, I think the kind of the big thing here for the Lizardmen is they just need to survive long enough to kill all these Bull Centaurs. If they can pop the Bull Centaur line, I can't imagine the Chaos Dwarfs are going to be able to effectively summon any of that back because of how expensive they'll be in supplies, and that would probably lead to them folding. But it is a big but, though, because there are so many of them still.
Yeah, there is. And we've also got a Wild Astrogoth Iron Hand charging forth on his mech suit. He's got Flamestorm ready to go, so I don't think... Have we seen any magic so far? I don't think we have. I think Houseplant has literally been saving his Winds of Magic this entire time, so he's got, like, multiple Flamestorms potentially ready to go here. And that could potentially be pretty devastating for what's left of Taco's army here.
Yeah, that Slon Mage Priest is getting beat down pretty hard. Like, the Lizardmen are getting pushed back, like, heavily. They're having a very hard time. Like, the Dread Saurian's doing great, but he can't be everywhere at once. Yep.
And, you know, the leadership on the Bull Centaurs is also good enough that, like, they're almost going to fight to the death here. You can see this one unit down below 1,000 HP just barely routes, so it is pretty impactful. The Lizardmen are doing their best to bring in even more missiles at this point, but Astrogoth is now in contact with the Dread Saurian. It's going to get another... Oh, but here comes the Flamestorm. Oh, it's a disaster for the skinks in the back line and for the feral cold ones and everything else. They're just going to get blasted by that flamestorm. And suddenly the Dread Saurian's looking very, very exposed. He's up against Astrogoth and Bulls, which is probably more than he can handle. Let's see.
Yeah, Astrogoth is he is not the typical mage hybrid of like, oh, he's primarily a mage, but he can do some melee. No, he's a beat stick. Like, he is very, very good in melee combat.
Yes, he is. And after we saw that the Black Hammer of Hashut active gives him a huge amount of extra weapon strength, also flammable on contact, which of course, since he deals fire damage, is even going to further increase his damage. Just insane burst potential with Kindle Flame proc as well, maybe a little self-cast of Cascading Fire Cloak, although I guess he doesn't really have that in this build. But still, it's too much for Lizman to handle. Dread Saurian's forced to pull back, and Taco is looking at a very tough 3-cap situation, also down on army damage value. So, not a great showing for your Lizman today. But...
Yeah, Bull Centaur line is finally buckling. But like, oh man, the price that had to be paid, and that Dread Saurian, it is about to go down. Here it goes.
Yep, there it is. Sorry, big boy, it wasn't meant to be. Another Flamestorm too, just right on those skinks and the Razordons too. So that's the thing is, yeah, Taco potentially could get some stuff out here to try and push this back, but. Let's see, what else does Houseplant have on the field? He does have another unit of Dual Axes Fresh coming out and another unit of Shielded Bull Centaur Raiders, so...
those magma cannons are like they are in their happy place. Just inching forward and just mowing down Lizardmen with each shot. I bet Flying Taco is really wishing he had some like... man, if he had the Regiment of Renowned Ripperdactyls right now, that they would be able to put in so much work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they could get in that back line and shut down those 2 magma cannons, that would be extremely effective. But let's see, Taco's pushing forward a little bit now as he's dealt with most of the Bull Centaurs. He's just got these 2 new, fresh units. Astrogoth is kind of interrupting his reinforcements, though, which is a big problem.
Yeah, Taco, I mean, he's, 3,000 behind on value. He's still a little bit ahead on points, but he's not earning anymore. And he's also, like, way down on number of units, too. Like this is gonna be a hard thing to pull back from.
Yep, certainly. And the magma cannons too. I mean, they can be unsummoned because they have all their HP left for a little bit of a refund. So they, of course, have done plenty of damage to pay for themselves. But that cost efficiency just goes up when you unsummon them. So it's gonna be tough. I'm not sure. Taco's fighting back as best he can, but I don't think he's going to be able to pull this one back. We'll see. I mean, this one Bull Centaur render overextending pretty heavily, but look at how much of a difference that shield makes, man. That unit is just tanking missile fire.
Yeah, the Bull Centaur renders with shields are probably one of my favorite, like, shielded variant units, as far as, like, it combos so nicely with everything else they're doing. They just don't care about small arms fire. Could not be less bothered.
Yep. Oh, man. Let's see. If we take a nice wide view once again, more Bull Centaurs coming in, more reinforcements of, hey, guess what? Bull Centaurs.
You know, what would actually probably have been really great for all these Bull Centaurs would just been like a large amount of Saurus Spears, just because Bull Centaurs don't really have armor. Like, they rely very heavily on that missile resist.
Yes.
But, like, they only have 50 armor, so if something with decent weapon strength goes up against them, they'll fold, though they do have quite a bit of health.
Yep, they do. I almost think maybe, like, the Rippers to go after Magma Cannons, because Magma Cannons are definitely very dangerous to Saurus Spears, but if you could somehow shut down the Magma Cannons, then the Saurus Spears would probably be able to carry. You'd be at maybe risk of, like, Iron Sworn or something, but I think you'd probably still have the tools to deal with Chaos Dwarf Infantry, no problem. But
yeah, and one thing I've definitely noticed about the Chaos Dwarf, so I'm sure really good players prepare for this, is that Chaos Dwarves do not have a lot of counter to flyers. Like, they don't really have any flyers, and they also, a lot of their shooting is not necessarily well geared to deal with flyers unless they have fire glaives, which are very expensive. So,
yes.
At least in my experience when fighting them in multiplayer scenarios, like, Ripperdactyls can be kind of a terror to them because they just don't really have an effective way to deal with it.
Yep, I would agree with that assessment. And in fact, I was playing again against Flying Taco. We were playing Zinch versus Chaos Dwarfs, and I didn't bring anything to deal with the Burning Chariot, and then the Burning Chariot proceeded to like two-shot my Magna Cannons. So,
oof, yeah. Yeah, I really do think it's going to be interesting to see how people deal with it. But I think that's, I was talking to, I think, Anticity about Chaos Dwarfs. And one thing he said in like the Dwarf matchup is that gyrocopters are a nightmare for Chaos Dwarfs. They are so difficult to deal with for them and just obliterate a lot of their war machines, therefore allowing the Dwarf war machines to just, you know, go to town.
Yes. Definitely, and I will say blunderbusses will delete gyrocopters in like literally 2 volleys. Like they'll just remove their code from the game, but it's risky to take blunderbusses against regular dwarfs because their range isn't that good, and they're very likely to get out skirmished by even just like cheap like rangers and stuff. But anyway, Taco here did his best. The Dread Saurian pays for itself. Can't really ask much more of it here. I like the pick of the Ancient Salamander, but it did end up getting kind of caught and killed there, which is unfortunate for sure. Maybe just more chameleons in hindsight would have been better. Just, yeah, more volume of shooting, I think. But it did very well.
Man, all the Bull Centaurs got great value. So did the Magma Cannons, like, my lord.
Yep, and we do see probably the maximum amount possible. Yep. Yep, so it's pretty interesting. I mean, the Bull Centaurs are obviously very strong, and the Blazing Beards also paid for themselves, throwing their grenades at the Dread Saurian. Nice to see.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I don't think the Lizardmen anticipated nearly so many Bull Centaurs in that, like, yeah, they have some anti-large, but a lot of their anti-large is kind of more dedicated to armor piercing as opposed to just flat damage.
Yeah,
like I think some Saurus spears or I don't even know, like the Colossodon Hunters definitely would have been great, but it's like the Lizardmen don't really have access to a lot of like cheap anti-large high damage that is not AP, because that's just generally you tend to see that rolled up in halberds, whereas you don't really need the halberds when you're fighting the Chaos Dwarfs.
Right. And yeah, like I said, just more volume of stuff, even like cheap shooting. But let's go on and get to the next replay. We've got more game between these guys, so let's go to the next
what's our pick
one.
and bans for this?
So, Houseplant's up on the picks. He's gonna go Ogre Kingdoms, Norska, and Beastmen with no bans. Taco goes Chaos Dwarfs, no bans, and Houseplant picks Ogre Kingdoms. So we're going to see some more ogres. This is a matchup I think that in land battles, in domination, and just in general, you're going to see a lot because there's quite a bit of parity between these two factions. But go ahead and get that loaded up and we'll get to it. Yeah, obviously they also start geographically very close to each other on the campaign map, so your experience in campaign, for those of you guys watching, you will definitely be fighting a lot of ogres.
Yeah.
So.
Does not even matter which legendary lord you play, you will be fighting ogres with Chaos Dwarfs. It's gonna happen.
Yep, it's fantastic. I believe a Zaten campaign I was playing, it was pretty fun actually. Ended up teaming up with Kugath to kill both Gorst and Greasus, which felt just awesome. But
I'm sure, dude, the Kugath players are gonna be like, give me those Chaos Dwarf allied units. Gimme. So I can finally shove Gorst in a box and throw him to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of war machines,
we got a
Blaster
Kadai!
once again. Oh, is there? Okay, I'll let you run through the Chaos Dwarfs real quick. That is a very cool pick.
Yeah, so the Kadai Destroyer, it's kind of a weird unit. It is a beat stick. It is relatively well armored, but it's not as heavily armored as one might expect because it relies a bit on like physical resistance and the blazing body, which we can talk about in a minute. But we do have the Kadai Destroyer. It is backed up by some Bull Centaurs with great weapons, Bull Centaurs that are kind of all over the place. Obviously, they're great versus ogres. Then we've got Goblin Laborers, Hobgoblin Archers, got Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, and then leading the force is actually a sorcerer, a Demon Smith, actually, not a Sorcerer Prophet, but a Demon Smith on foot. And he's brought Final Transmutation, Plague of Rust, and he does have Reforge, So the Kadai will have healing so long as he stays close enough to the Demon Smith.
Okay. Definitely very, very important. I see that Kadai is actually rank 9. So not only did Taco bring it, but he invested extra gold to rank it all the way up to rank 9. So definitely wants to protect it from missiles as much as possible. For Houseplant here, he's got the dreaded Iron Blaster Lord once again. Ogre Bulls here with some Man-Eaters. Yes, Man-Eaters, great weapons. The Sky Striders, Regiment of Renown here, and some Trappers. And that's pretty much it for the time being. So,
yep, Gordas is already arrived.
In one position. Oh, he does. Yep, Gordas is, where is he? Oh, yeah, he's out here.
He is
kind of helping to protect Demon Smith.
One of the most bizarrely tanky characters with his goofy, crooked dice. Like, it doesn't really matter what he rolls. He gets so tanky for 30 seconds. Like, man, those are just big boy buffs. 60 armor, 40% of either physical resistance or ward save. Like, that is just tank for 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, he's super cheap too, honestly. Like, kitted down with just the 2 abilities he has here, it's probably not even 500 points, maybe about 500 points. I mean, he's incredibly cheap for what he offers. So, I really like to see him here.
Gotta say, I love how well the Iron Blaster is performing against the Chaos Dwarfs. Like, it is a solid war machine. Like, that armor sundering is really nice to just kind of, like, loosen them up even further. Man, the Ogres are going all in on Objective 3. He is not messing around down there.
Oh yeah, stacking all the big bull bellies on that one objective just to absolutely weigh it down. And Taco's just kind of patiently taking the other 2 objectives and building up his own forces. He's got some more Fire Glaives coming out. Very cool choice. And he's got some Bull Centaur great weapons. So let's see how it does here. Hobgoblin Archers, too, are not super common pick, but in this matchup, it is nice just to get that volume of fire. Just to be able to put lots of arrows on target on those unarmored bulls and such. Even Man-Eaters, obviously, without a lot of armor, are going to be quite vulnerable to that shooting. But let's see how they do here. Just really want that Kadai to come in here and start smashing stuff in the face. But
yeah,
Taco playing
Taco's
smart
being
with
very careful. Looks like it's coming in now, though. It's still got enough health for its Hellish Frenzy, so it's got like a unique version of Frenzy in that it needs to be at 75% or higher health to have it. But man, it is scary when that is active.
Oh yeah, almost 750 weapon strength, just absolutely massive. Oof, it's going in maybe just directly after the Iron Blaster here, at the very least forcing the Iron Blaster away. And they do have to be careful of the Sky Striders. Obviously, they're going to cut straight through that physical resistance of the Destroyer due to their magical attacks. But let's see, right now, they are not doing much. Gordas also just runs in here YOLO, like forcing a big blob of ogres. Absolutely hilarious.
Ooh, yeah, that Kadai is getting melted by those Man-Eaters and the Iron Blaster, though. Like, it is...
Oh, yeah. He did get the Reforge, but still just getting pummeled pretty hard here. The Iron Blasters continuing to get shots. The Bull Centaur renders also 1v1 versus Man-Eaters here. I mean, I say 1v1. There's shooting on both sides contributing.
Daddy Demon Smith helping out, though, shooting in that upgraded Final Transmutation and a Reforge on the Kadai, who no longer is unbreakable. He's down below 50% health.
Yep. He's feeling a little scared about the situation, but hopefully we'll be able to pull through. With the threat to the Iron Blaster, it's forced to pull away. And look at this, the Infernal Guard have actually been shooting the Iron Blaster, picking away at some of its HP, almost unnoticed, which is really nice play there. The range of the Fire Glaives is higher than most units, right? So it's really nice to have that option in there to get some long-range focus. They've almost actually finished the Iron Blaster there, but instead switching targets on over to the Man-Eaters as they have finished off one unit of Bull Centaurs. So very big bloody fight right now, but the Kadai is managing to survive so far. Did terrify away the Sky Striders, so at least for another couple minutes here, it should be able to keep fighting.
Yeah, the Kadai, with his little Bull Centaur bodyguard, he is doing okay.
Yeah, those Bull Centaurs were able to get in support in time. Gorda's also kind of acting as a little bit of an agent here of the Kadai, so it's surviving, at least for the time being. So we'll see if it's able to keep going.
It's almost kind of acting as a distraction Carnifex right now, if anything. Like, the Ogres are really wanting to kill it, but I don't know. It's like, honestly, it hasn't done a lot necessarily yet, other than absorb a lot of damage.
And that, I'm not going to lie, that has been the primary role of Kadai that I've seen in replays that I've played in and casted so far. Like, it generally is a very good distraction piece. But, like, right now, for example, the Fireglaves haven't been focused by anything, right? Like, they are a very expensive and important target, but the Iron Blaster has been pushed around, shot by them. It's not able to kind of get set and shoot directly at them. So, yeah, definitely tactically the Kadai just being a distraction is quite nice, and it's surviving. It's getting some gold value. It's almost got 1,000 gold, so, you know, it's getting somewhere.
Yep. And it is so nice to see with the Chaos Dwarfs, like a lot of shooting units here on the battlefield. The Chaos Dwarfs, really cool. They've got beautiful animations on a lot of the units, even their shooting units, like from the Hobgoblin Archers to the Fireglaves to the Blunderbusses. They've all got reload animations. So it really does help them feel very alive when they're actually sitting there popping off shots and then actually reloading their weapons.
Yes, they're so cool, and it's something that fans have requested for a long time, is proper reload animations, so I'm very, very excited about that. It's something small, but just that little bit of extra flavor, extra spice, if you will. It's actually literally like 2 million Scoville because they're lit on fire, but oh yes.
Wow, I also
look at the
love the
focus
sound
fire
effects on the Fireglaves.
Oh
like,
yeah,
they have such a unique, like, it sounds like they're firing las cannons.
Right? Yes, definitely. And the fire is also very effective here, finishing off the Sky Striders. The Ogres have been taking some pretty serious damage. Flying Taco just slightly ahead. Tastefully, you know, like 600 ahead on army damage value. Ogres have a lot of units on the field still, though. They actually have 3 more units on the field currently. But let's see this Fireglaive. Oh man, that one Chaos Dwarf Warrior just getting absolutely surround pounded. Fireglaves are here to help, continuing to provide plenty of Overwatch fire, and a nice final transmutation as well from the Metal Sorcerer here. Should clear out that blob quite nicely.
Yeah, Hobgoblins are also proving themselves pretty nasty. Those Wolf Raiders, they are pretty spooky. If they get you in the flank or rear, that plus 25% additional damage along with their charge bonus, they can eat you for lunch if they manage to get in behind you.
Yes, they are very squishy. They have, a lot of people don't realize this, but they have even less HP overall than regular Wolf Riders. They have like about 1,000 HP less than even Elven Light Cavalry, so they are extremely squishy. They also cost about the same as Elven Light Cavalry, so definitely very risky, especially if you take a lot of them, but they can pay for themselves quite easily, as can any light cavalry, light melee cav, if they get into the right engagement at the right time. And I mean, they have very similar melee stats other than the HP to Elven Light Cavalry, including solid charge bonus at 40. So they can definitely get some serious damage. You just have to be careful about how you use them, because if you have ham fists like me and you tend to make mistakes with your micro, then sometimes they can die very easily and not pay for themselves.
Man,
but
you can see those Ogre Bulls and Iron Guts learn to their detriment. The Fireglaves are so good. Because even if you get in on melee, they are not pushovers. Like, they're a full-on FU halberd to the face unit if you try and charge them in melee.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 45 melee defense, 33 attack, only +5 bonus versus large, but 25 AP per swing is huge. So they are, I mean, they're basically a mid-tier halberd with a gun attached. It's very strong.
This Demon Smith is just doing his best not to get ate by Shrek over here.
Oh yeah, the Slaughtermaster. You know, actually, I'm looking at their stats here, and I don't hate the Demon Smith's chances. Like, his stats are definitely worse overall, but yep, looks like Houseplant's gonna throw in the towel there. I guess he felt that he couldn't come back. I wasn't even really paying attention to the score, but I guess Taco just had such an advantage there. Distraction Kadai ultimately was a distraction, but the rest of the army did pretty well. Man, look at those Bull Centaurs, 3,000 value on one of them, and just Fireglaves also 3,000 value. I love to see that. Such a cool unit, man.
Yeah, Bull Centaurs are definitely showing up as consistent MVPs throughout a lot of the matches we've seen. But I mean, that being said, I mean, Taco used his various units extremely well. Like the Kadai, it ate a lot of shooting, it ate a lot of focus, but the Chaos Dwarfs are able to take advantage of that, like just lure in a lot of units around it. That Demon Smith would then just follow up with an upgraded Final Transmutation, which would hurt a lot. Those Fire Glaives were able to just mow down things that were bullying the Kadai. You know, there is something to be said for a piece that necessarily doesn't get a lot of damage done, but it eats a lot of damage and lures people in. Because, I mean, you look at the Ogres got so much great value on a lot of their damage, as far as like the Sky Striders and the Iron Blaster got 3k in value, but most of that was probably on the Kadai.
Exactly. So it's a nice distraction piece for sure. So let's go ahead and get on to game 3 now, as Taco has forced one more. He is up on the picks as well. He's going to go Ogre Kingdoms, Nurgle, and Dark Elves with banning Norska. Houseplant is going to pick Empire and ban Ogre Kingdoms, and Taco's going to go with Nurgle. So we should be seeing a Nurgle versus the Empire. Definitely a very fun matchup.
It's the fall of Altdorf.
Oh, yeah. And Mark of Nurgle actually was recently buffed, so all Nurgle mortal units no longer have a speed debuff, so it should be really interesting. That will greatly help them in domination. I mean, Nurgle was, in my opinion, one of the worst factions in domination before because of their slow speed, but now they should be much better. So go ahead and get this loaded up and get it to you shortly.
It's good to get rid of that debuff, because it's like, yeah, sure, Nurgle guys are fat, but they're also not supposed to be bothered by that fatness. You know?
Yes.
It's like, if you're not going to give them a vigor buff to go up against the speed debuff, it's better to just get rid of the speed debuff.
Right? It's like, you know, it's like my portly gym teacher when I was in middle school, who was quite rotund, but could move in an alarmingly fast fashion when he wanted to.
Hey, it's never about the gut, it's about the thighs. That's how you always measure how athletic a man is, because the gut can be very misleading.
Well, let's go ahead and get on these builds here. This Jade Wizard coming in hot. He's got just Earthbloods supporting Demigryph Knights and lots of War Wagons. War Wagons are definitely the meta for Empire right now. Similar to what we talked about with, you know, single entity artilleries. When you have a missile unit that's, they're still multi-model, right? There's 4 models, but all the gunners are in chariots. So, you know, you have to actually kill the chariot model to kill the gunners. Unlike with, say, Outriders, when each individual gunner is on his own and can be killed individually, so you can lose power very easily. Not to mention, of course, War Wagons have pretty decent armor at 90. So, ooh, the Black Lion's Hellblaster Wagon is also here. Very cool pick. Currently blasting some Chaos Warriors. Why don't you get to those?
Great against Nurgle, too. Yeah, so over on the Nurgle side, we do have a Soul Grinder who's kind of already trading fire with various units, probably trying to get picks on the Demigryphs, because, yeah, I mean, when he lands a shot, it hurts. Like, it takes off a good couple hundred damage each time. We do have a very beefy Herald of Nurgle leading the fray up on a Rotfly. He has got Rancid Visitations, Stream of Corruption, and he's got the Healing Focus. So providing a lot of different support roles, a lot of Marauders of Nurgle on the battlefield, along with Chaos Warriors who are getting absolutely obliterated by those War Wagons. But the Toad Legion is showing up, and they've got all sorts of AP and anti-infantry. We've also got some Chaos Knights of Nurgle backing them up. Some pretty serious stuff building up on Nurgle's back line, getting ready for the fight.
Yep. Toads did get a weapon strength buff. They now have, it's about a 50-50 split, slightly more towards armor piercing. They've got 26 AP and 24 base weapon damage, but it just makes them much, much better against armored units, obviously. And that combined with the speed buff to all Nurgle mortal units, and they should be much better. But here, they are definitely suffering from the guns of the Empire.
Yeah, I've always loved War Wagons. I know they were kind of a meme thing when they first came out, but like just being able to, like, they do okay damage when running people over in melee, and they're able to shoot at all times, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Yep. Yep, even when their models are fully surrounded, the gunners in the back will continue firing. So it makes them almost impossible to shut down. Like, they are by far one of the toughest missile units to shut down, which is one of the reasons they're so good. They also have a lot of ammunition, so although their burst damage isn't very high, if they're if you let them just fire over the course of a long game, like especially in domination, they can absolutely pay for themselves like twice, you know, easily, no problem. So
yeah, that Herald of Nurgle kind of single-handedly clearing off Objective 3. Did a great job. He got that Overcast Rancid Visitations on the Demigryphs to kind of give them a warning shot, which did allow the infantry to eventually take the objective. But so Nurgle's got a little bit of an objective advantage. This fight is moving much quicker. Not a lot of build-up from Nurgle. He's just kind of thrown himself in. Oh, is that the... yeah, it's the Barons of the Bog.
Nice. Their weapon strength debuff makes them extremely tough to kill in melee, especially when it stacks with poison and other effects. This wasting sickness here, minus 25% mass, which is hilarious, and it's like literally go on a diet. And then minus weapon strength as well, which is quite strong, but the pressure, the range pressure from the Empire is just kind of forcing Taco to engage early. So yeah, definitely no early build-up phase, but a nice charge by the Demigryph Knights in the front line. They're going to get hit by another Rancid Visitations, though. That Herald, though, is in range of the War Wagons and getting plinked by them. Not a comfortable situation for him.
Man, those Barons of the Bog are so nasty. Like, not because like that damage debuff is like so gross. They also have that basically giving infinite vigor to anyone close enough to them as long as they're half health, but that's not going to matter, it seems, as much because those War Wagons, man, look at the Knights. The Knights are well below half already.
Yep, and on the low ground too, we've got these grenade launchers now that just exploded one unit of Marauders. They're now going to try and explode these Chaos Warriors. Do have some Rot Flies moving in here to try and counteract them, but it's a painful experience to be a Nurgle combatant right now, as they are just getting absolutely shot to pieces, and there's not really much they can do about it. I mean, Taco didn't bring like a lot of we don't see like a lot of hounds and throwing axe horsemen, which would have been a good potential counter for what the Empire brought here. Excuse me, if they had you know, some good mobility and like the armor piercing of the throwing axes, if you can keep from getting shot too much, can actually do pretty well against the War Wagons. But the War Wagons charging in melee, you know, it's a fun time when they just ram the front line here.
Yeah, the only thing in Nurgle's savings grace is he at least does have his army abilities are triggered by damage taken, and the War Wagons are running out of ammo, so like he's kinda able to make a little bit of a silver lining out of just eating so much garbage to the face. But man, that is just a lot of early game damage.
It definitely is. I mean, almost 3,000 damage. Yeah, more than 3,000 damage at this point. Nurgle is kind of trying to hold.
Sun. That's cool.
Nice. Love
you
that.
Don't get to see them
fire damage. Yeah, I mean, depends on the matchup. The fire damage can be very good in some situations, and against Nurgle, I definitely I think it's pretty strong. They also have some spell resistance as well, so they have a few traits that make them decent in this matchup. The thing is, they have lower armor and melee defense than even Empire Knights, so you really have to be careful about how you use them. They are shock cavalry in the truest sense of the word, absolutely. So, yeah, Nurgle just continuing to try and hold for the time being, eat those shots, tank it out as best they can.
Yeah, well, he does have the advantage in objectives, so, like, this is kind of where Nurgle is his happiest. Like, yeah, sure, I'm going to take a lot of damage, but I'm going to also build up my army ability meter and just keep summoning garbage onto the battlefield as much as I can while I'm building up victory tickets.
Yep. And definitely has taken some damage, but still has plenty of units on the field. We see some Forsaken coming out now and Hounds on the low ground, so it looks like Houseplant is getting ready to push up on the high ground here. But on the low ground, Nurgle reinforcing a bit and just making sure that they shore up their defenses and hang on to this objective. Try and win on objectives. Yeah, looks like those Marauders going to be retreated there. Yep. The Soul Grinder also, I don't know if that was a mistake, right at the start of the battle did get retreated as well. It would have been nice to have, for sure.
Yeah, did he get recalled or did he get blown up?
Got recalled. He got unsummoned specifically, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or what the thinking was there. Maybe Flying Taco thought that he couldn't, you know, that it would be actually more cost-effective to just refund it, you know, and get some of the value back, and I don't know. It was definitely an interesting choice, but I do feel that even if he had kind of taken it to the back of his deployment and was just maybe shooting onto objective number 3 right now, or, you know, it would definitely be useful to still have it on the field, but again, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him about the decision making on that one, if it was a mistake or if it was intentional, kind of what's going on there.
Yeah, looks like the Knights of the Blazing Sun are putting up a really good fight for Objective 3, and like looks like they're probably gonna take it. Nurgle's kind of main strat, it seems right now, is to use that Rancid Visitations to give him the leg up, but that's not working as well against the Knights. They do that spell resistance is coming in handy.
Yep. Yep, and the damaged demis are still on the field. Both came down to help support this fight as well, so the Empire is able to concentrate quite a bit of value here and kind of make a simultaneous push.
Blazing Sun sandwich!
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Beautiful stuff down here. Those Forsaken just getting crumped.
Yeah, the Empire has secured Objective 3. Very nice. And Objective 2 is looking a little dicey.
It is. The Nurgle forces are definitely having some problems here. The Toads trying to get to the back line to shut down those Huntsmen. The Huntsmen, of course, with the anti-large bonus, will be great at shooting the Toads. But right now, like the Barons of the Bog and the other Toad units kind of getting caught up, not really able to effectively get into that back line. But with that objective lost pretty decisively, the rest of those mobile Empire forces can then sweep up onto the high ground and shut the door on this engagement. Taco's definitely in a very dangerous position here, but let's see if he can hold out. Ooh, the Black Lions really coming back in.
Yeah, really getting a lot of those Vanguard units in to get on the Huntsmen, which is good. Those Norskin, the Marauder Horsemen, are going to be able to shut them down, I think.
Yes, they should, at least momentarily.
The War Wagons are still doing work in melee, and they're not giving up. Oh, those grenade launchers? Never mind. Rip horsemen.
Yep. The grenades. Oh, they have other ideas. And at this point, the War Wagons are essentially like a mobile terrain piece where they're just like blocking various aspects of the Nurgle's advance so that the missile units of the Empire can continue firing in and just reaping that value. So looking like a victory for Houseplant right now. Taco's in a very tough position.
Yeah, I really don't see how Nurgle's going to be able to take this back. Like, he's going to be very hard-pressed to reclaim that third objective. Oh, we see the mass recall on the War Wagons, which means they're all probably going to be coming back out again very soon. Like, the Black Lions are fresh. They got all their ammo back. Yep,
they are fresh, and they are just shredding those Toads and the Barons right in the center, so I would expect Taco to probably throw in the towel relatively soon. I mean, he's still kind of close on victory tickets, but the battlefield situation, I mean, he is literally half the amount of units on the field as the Empire right now, so...
Yeah, this definitely seems like the Empire's happy place.
Yep, certainly is. Love to see me some hot War Wagon action. Is this Volkmar's color scheme or is it Gelt's color scheme? I believe this is Volkmar's, that's right. Very cool. Lots of yellow. But oh man, I love the VFX of the Dahvplays, or the sound effects I should say. That buzzing, droning, buzz.
They're a very, very well done unit.
Yeah, they got a buff also. They recently got
how big they are compared to a human. They're
right?
So big.
And there's now, what, three more of them per unit? 2 or 3 more of them per unit? They had 9 or 10 before, I can't remember. But they did get a little bit more unit models. Them, Plague Drones, all got a few more unit models just to kind of give them a little bit of a buff. Not that it's helping much in this situation. They are just absolutely overwhelmed by numbers of Empire stuff. So it's looking pretty tough.
Empire has secured a triple cap. So.
Yep. It's definitely
the Herald is about to go down too.
Yep.
Like he's got Miasma Pestilence trying to save him, but those Knights are like, haha, spell resist, nerd.
Right. Yeah, and the Spearmen too. I mean, the Rotfly doesn't have any armor, so all those units are going to be getting very solid damage against him. Only 30 armor on that Rotfly is really not enough to mitigate any of that incoming damage to any kind of meaningful degree. So it's definitely nice to see some Empire, high-level Empire plays, and Knights and War Wagons and just the combined arms, state troops, and yeah, interesting. Jade Wizard here just kind of being chill and cool and doing hippie stuff, I'm sure.
As you do. As you do with Jade Wizard.
Right? Like, I like to think that, like, the Jade Wizard and the Amber Wizard have, like, a nice hippie club where they, I don't know, advocate for treatment or something.
I don't know. I feel like Amber Wizards are like borderline feral at times. they're probably a little more aggressive.
Yeah, they're a little bit more militant, let's say, in their activism, like you know, blocking off the road to Altdorf to protest, I don't know, whatever. Anyway. Yeah, it's looking pretty grim.
The Nurgle ship has sailed.
Yeah, it's sailed and sunk by wagons. The Hellblasters, man, that Hellblaster wagon, 4,000 damage value, absolutely incredible. The rest of the wagons also get some really nice value in. Demogryph Knight's doing a good job overall. Yeah, it's just all firing on all cylinders here for Houseplant.
Yeah,
man, look at the grenade launchers too.
Nurgle got absolutely shut down. There was just no walking away from that. He needed significantly more, I think, Marauder Horsemen to have any hope of kind of counter-harassing.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a tough situation for sure. Again, I'm not sure about that Soul Grinder there at the beginning. I'd have to go back and ask him about that, but with that, that's going to tie up that series. Houseplant takes the win, and we'll go on to the next round. So we've got one more series to get to. But before we get to that, we've got a presentation from Intel, and then also a presentation from Jackie Fish as well. So let's go ahead and get to that.
I have always loved pushing Total War to its limits. From the old days of holding a bridge with a line of Spartans against thousands of Persian infantry, to the Total War's laboratory mode, which gave you the opportunity to take Total War to its absolute limits, fighting tens of thousands of troops. Well, Creative Assembly have been kind enough to sponsor this video for me to take things even further beyond with the brand new and free Mirrors of Madness game modes. Total War, working alongside Intel, have created the ultimate playground for someone like me. With the Mirrors of Madness 3LC, we have two brand new game modes, the Infinite Portal, which allow you to use countless combinations of customizable battle settings to manipulate the laws of reality. Basically, you can change a ton of features to create some pretty wacky scenarios, including sticking the unit size to 10 times Ultra, resulting in battles numbering tens of thousands of troops, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of troops. The other game mode in the Mirrors of Madness 3LC is the Trials of Fate, which offers you the opportunity to fight well-known Total War Warhammer battles reimagined within the twisted realms of Tzeentch to win unique campaign items for the Chaos Undivided Demon Prince. So let's start there with the Trials of Fate. As of right now, there are currently 5 well-known battles, such as Blackfire Pass, the Fallen Gates, and Hel Fen. In these battles, you'll take command of a Tzeentch-based army and be pitted against endless waves of enemies ranging from the Orcs to the Vampires to the Lizardmen and finally Chaos. In these battles, there are no victories. You'll get overwhelmed and defeated eventually. It is simply just a matter of time. However, the longer you stay alive and the more enemies you manage to defeat, the happier Tzeentch is and rewards you with points. As you earn more of these points, the bar in the top of your screen will fill up, passing to the next reward, which goes from bronze to silver, gold, and then finally platinum. So the longer you survive and the more enemies you kill, the better your rewards are. Tzeentch, however, does not send you into battle unarmed though. You have a set of 3 new chaos abilities that absolutely demolish everything on screen. I mean, just look at this. You also have a spell that disorientates everything around it, and another vortex spell that just gets shot off into the distance and wreaks havoc along its path. These spells can also be upgraded with the in-game book resource that again you accumulate as the battle progresses, enhancing the abilities and making them even more devastating. Finally, whilst you hold the capture point, you basically have infinite winds of magic, which means keeping the flag secured is pretty much your #1 priority, because whilst you have it, the only thing you really have to contend with is your own cooldowns. The ability to spam stuff like Infernal Gateway is absolutely brutal, and alongside that you also get access to a Fire Mage, so having a Burning Head and Infernal Gateway just being shot off, causing absolute mayhem, is a really quick way to accumulate a ton of points. The two I tried was definitely a stark difference, because the battle against the Lizardmen was definitely an uphill engagement. Against the Orcs it was a little bit easier to gain points, as they were throwing through a lot cheaper units towards my lines, and it wasn't really until a massive Black Orcs came that they started to really penetrate the armor of my Tzeentch warriors. Overall though, I think this is a really neat game mode, and I love the way that it actually ties back into the grand campaign with the customizability. Unlocking extra body parts for the Demon Prince is a very unique way of kind of going full circle and bringing this back to stuff like Immortal Empires. Okay, now let's strap some rockets to my computer and prepare to make liftoff into the Infinite Portal game mode. I'm going to be attempting to fit the most amount of units on screen at one time before the game implodes on itself like a black hole. This game mode allows you to push the limits of Total War Warhammer 3, pitting any faction against one another and adjusting the damage multipliers, the reload rate, the ability to add infinite winds of magic, unit scaling, and even blood. The thing I was most excited for, however, was definitely the unit size modifier. This meant that units that had 180 models in them would be bumped all the way up to 1800. Couple that with the large army option, which allowed you to have 40 units per army, and well, you can see where I'm going with this. I started off with, you know, just a casual 51,000 soldiers on the battlefield, having both Cathay and Skaven fight it out for my pleasure. This was with a unit size turned all the way up to ×10. I also scaled up the unit entity as well because, you know, I wanted to see what Mao Ying looked like. But I was also blown away by the true scale of the units like the Terracotta Sentinel. There was just something so right about seeing these things tower over my 23,000 troops in an absolutely gigantic fashion. I honestly wish there was an option to just leave lords at the same size but increase the scale for monstrous units. The battle itself actually ran pretty well, all things considered, and just watching 160 fire rocket batteries unleash hellfire on an army of 33,000 Skaven was definitely satisfying. On top of that, having 1,200 models of Jade Warriors per unit clash against thousands of Skavens with a 2,000 enlarged Mao Ying towering over them, well, I mean, honestly, what more could you ask for? I'll tell you what more you could ask for. 90,000 soldiers on the battlefield was my next test. I decided to go up pretty much double in unit size, with my choice being the Orcs and the Skaven this time. Honestly, the Green Tide had never looked this good before. I mean, 42,000 Orcs charging towards 51,000 Skaven is the stuff I used to dream about as a kid. The Rogue Idols also looked incredible on 200% entity scaling, towering over the Rats and Orcs as they battled below. Performance-wise, this was where I really started to notice the game struggling on the normal speed. I was still getting a similar FPS as the last battle, just at this point I think the AI calculations were getting a little bit too much for the game to handle. Surprisingly though, sticking the game on slow motion completely removed any lag and the game ran perfectly. So yeah, 90,000 Orcs and the Skaven fighting to the death looks pretty neat. So that's probably as far as you can take the unit size with actual playable performance, and it's absolutely incredible that the hardware can actually push to 90,000 soldiers. Extremely impressive stuff. However, I was not done with the new Infinite Portal game mode. I thought it'd be fun to actually go ahead and take a look at one of the other features, which is of course the unlimited winds of magic. To do this, I put tens of thousands of vampire count soldiers up against a massive army from the dwarves and basically just spam the living hell out of the Winds of Death spell. On top of that, I had the complete ability just to consistently raise undead up until my limit, which was pretty amazing. So as you can see from the footage on screen, just being able to rise these massive blocks of infantry from nowhere. And keep in mind, we still have the unit size set to actually 10 times. So that meant I was raising blocks of 1800 zombies and I believe 1600 skeleton warriors. So that actually became very crazy. And then think that I had 3 different casters all doing that. So every single time I did a rotation of spawning, I was actually bringing in close to 6,000 soldiers to the battlefield at one time. And the spell actually allows you to do this 7 times. So you can quite quickly realize that this is extremely strong. Couple that with, of course, the winds of death and you get some brutal results. And I mean, my god, it just looks so good. Having this many soldiers on a battle map clashing, it's just beautiful. And finally, of course, we could not mess around with the Infinite Portal game mode without recreating a massive cavalry charge. I brought along 8,000 horse riders. These are Grail Knights and Knights of the Realm, and also the Green Knight is in here somewhere, so make sure to keep an eye out for him, see if you can spot him in this mass of riders. And these 8,000 riders are going to smash into a whole wealth of 25,000 skeletons as they approach them and get ready to send them flying. And they will get sent flying because we are utilizing another feature from the Infinite Portal game mode, and that is turning the gravity all the way down to 10%. So these impact charges are absolutely devastating. One of the actual funny things as well that spawns from this is that the impact charges don't actually kill all the models because there's so many of them. So a lot of these soldiers get sent flying miles and miles away from the battlefield and then just get up and slowly walk back to the battlefield. And I kind of like the idea of the skeletons actually doing this. And that is going to be my time with these 2 brand new game modes. Be sure to check them out. And once again, a massive thank you to Intel and Total War for sponsoring this video and making my PC as hot as the brand new Chaos Dwarf forges.
And what a wonderful presentation. They are hot indeed, are they not, Loremaster Sotek?
Yes, molten hot, one might say.
Yes, the most spice. So rather than a video from Intel, I just a quick little presentation here. We have one last announcement that's only been made possible thanks to our partners at Intel. We're going to be throwing it up on the screen right now, and we are thrilled to announce that Intel is sending each competitor a brand new Intel Arc A750 GPU as an extra thanks for taking part today. They definitely didn't need to do that. They just wanted to be awesome because they're awesome. So thank you to our friends at Intel for that. Wonderful addition, a little extra prize for all the wonderful participants from today.
Yeah, give them that extra boost so they can really maintain all those epic multiplayer battles that they enjoy indulging in so much.
Oh yes, and just as a personal aside, Intel did also, I mean, back when we got the original access for Warhammer 3, Intel actually sent us brand new i9s, us content creators, so Intel's awesome in my book. They're an awesome partner for Creative Assembly, and yeah, big thanks to them for all of that. So with that, we're going to get on to our last series for the day, Subutai versus Platypus, in one of the weirdest juxtapositions of names I think I've ever seen. Like a famous warlord from history versus Platypus.
As it should be.
Definitely. I'm going to go through the picks and bans once again and just kind of explain, because I know we've got a lot of new people in chat who maybe weren't here the first time I kind of explained this. So to make sure that the faction picks are balanced, what we'll do is the first player picks 3 factions. So in this case, Subutai picks Norska, Chaos Dwarfs, and Warriors of Chaos. Platypus examines those 3 factions. He chooses to ban one of them, in this case the Chaos Dwarfs, and picks one faction for himself to play, in this case the Empire. Subutai then can pick from the remaining 2 of his original choices. Since Chaos Dwarfs was banned, he picks either Norska or Warriors of Chaos. He's going to choose Warriors. So once again, we get the classic Empire versus Warriors of Chaos matchup. Definitely a fun one. So let's go ahead and get that loaded up, and we'll get to it. Love to see
Hot
these Empire
diggity
games.
damn. Yeah, Empire's getting a lot of love today.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Definitely a big fan of Empire and Bretonnia. Would have liked to have seen at least one Bretonnia game today. It's possible. I guess maybe we'll see them in the next round, but no Chaos Dwarfs, just wagons, it looks like, and Knights of the Blazing Sun, and yeah, grenade launchers with Balthazar Gelt leading the way. What a hilarious starting army.
I feel like we've seen a lot of this somewhere before.
Yep. Yeah, I love the color scheme too of Hawkland, that beautiful green. So yeah, it's pretty much the Empire build. It's just guns and wagons and grenade launchers. That's pretty much it. Why don't you take us to Chaos?
Yeah, he immediately unsummoned Gelt. So over on Chaos, we've got once more the Ecstatic Legion color scheme. They seem to be the favorite for some reason. So we've got, looks like 3, 4, 5 units of Chaos Warriors in the front line. Very, very wide army. 5 units of Marauders with great weapons, and then 5 units of regular Marauders, along with some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes running around. And I swore I saw Festus the Leech Lord in the starting army, but maybe he also was unsummoned. Or maybe he's in the reinforcements.
It's possible he's in the reinforcements. I think it was a Hound unit that got unsummoned at the start from Chaos.
Yes, you were correct. Oh, we've already got some Hellstriders coming out, going toe-to-toe with these grenade launchers.
They will definitely be able to catch the grenade launchers, but with the Empire Knights looming in a protection position, it will be very tough. Obviously, they'll just get countercharged and killed. And Subutai, kind of in the very back of his deployment zone, you can tell doesn't want to get shot, but he doesn't have a choice. The Empire mobility... the Empire, I would say, their kind of #1 strength right now and what makes them unique as a faction is their mobile firepower. They, out of any other faction, have probably the highest damage, like skirmish cavalry and the missile chariots of war wagons. They even have mobile artillery, which a few other factions have access to now, but like the mortar wagons, and you've got the steam tank that I guess technically counts as mobile artillery as well. The Empire can bring guns to bear on you very quickly and reposition them, and it makes it very tough against a high-skilled player.
Yeah, it's really that skill ceiling that makes all the difference. Being able to use a unit that's able to reposition in a heartbeat, like you've got to really be on your A game to not let them get caught. Yep.
I think one of the hardest games I ever played personally was back in Warhammer 2, was up against the legendary Claxton Soothsayer, who was an absolute beast of a player. Legend of Warhammer 2, definitely. I was playing the Vampire Counts, who are famously melee-only army with 0 missile units. I was fighting his Empire, and he went for a full kite build, and that was one of the hardest, most painful games I've ever had to play. I did reasonably well for myself, so I'm pretty happy, but I did lose, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of match that I would have recurring nightmares about even after I played.
I still think about it to this day, like, man, if I had just screened better with my zombies. Speaking of screening, though,
these get rid of those Hellstriders.
Yep, just one-shot that unit, and the Marauders also are getting ran down by the Empire Cavalry. Empire having to reposition, as mentioned, kind of get away from this position, but those Chaos Warriors, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, that high charge, they just, even the Armored Chaos Warriors still taking huge damage from them. Of course, once that charge bonus wears off, the Knights of the Blazing Sun will start to suffer, but as a shock cavalry on that charge, they are devastating.
Thought I heard some chuckling coming from the Chaos side. Looks like Festus has shown up.
Aha! Love that Nurgle icon. That's super unique, actually. I don't know if I've ever seen him as reinforcements with that little pure Nurgle icon. That's fun. Anyway. The grenade launcher's getting counter-skirmished a little bit by some throwing axes here. More throwing axes coming out from Vanguard. So Empire's having to pull back. It's more of a tactical retreat than a true pushback there. A little bit ahead on damage, as Platypus is just playing his deck really smart right now. He's not trying to overcommit or get out of position, just keeping things within reinforcement range of everything else. Although on the low ground, we do have a push from Subutai that might be able to come in and take this objective. He's got a pretty strong force, multiple Marauders, Hellstriders, Chaos Warriors moving in on that objective. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a solid swarm. And Festus does really feel like he's shown up at a pretty appropriate time. Like, his healing is going to be really good for mitigating a lot of the damage from those war wagons. Not going to be able to help against the grenades very much because that's much more bursty, but that can be quite nice against the war wagons.
Yep, and especially as the melee push starts to get underway, which it looks like the Marauders are kind of making a broad advance all across the field, definitely will help, but man, those grenade launchers are punishing those Marauders very heavily. And, I mean, army damage value-wise, Platypus is taking a pretty significant advantage in this kind of kite situation, but obviously once Chaos actually gets into melee, they should be able to start evening this out, but I love that disruption charge by those war wagons. Get into those Marauder Horsemen, kind of break up their advance. Same thing, these Knights also just countercharging in, just to break up the advance and mess up the formation of Supatai's
beautiful
advances.
use of cavalry.
Absolutely. Textbook Empire play. Brings a tear to my eye, almost. Nice Fate of Yuna, too. Again, just one-shotting. Even though they're not the most high-value units, tactically super important to get rid of them. But here come the Armored Chaos Trolls. We've got one unit close, one unit far. Both coming in to try and make their presence felt here.
Yeah, this Dr. Festus Armored Chaos Troll combo seems to be pretty well liked.
Yep.
We've seen
Makes
this a couple
more sense
times
too
now.
with the Knights of the Blazing Sun having fire damage, why you would maybe want them against the Armored Chaos Trolls. I mean, the armor certainly would still make a pretty big difference, but that fire damage, every little bit of extra damage helps when you are trying to get through that armor, right? So.
Yep.
Looks like the wagon force went to try and recapture objective number 3. They're reinforcing the infantry there. They've got the Outriders, and again, we go back to the mobile firepower of the Empire. They can reposition all these shooting units very quickly in order to affect this, and the War Wagon's also getting another disruption charge, and man, they, for not having any charge bonus, they do a surprising amount of damage on the charge when they're all massed up like that.
Now, they are pretty heavy.
They are. They got quite a bit of mass for sure.
They got
and
a mass of 2,500. Yeah, that is nothing to sneeze at.
They are. I mean, it kind of makes sense. They're like heavy wooden wagons with fully armored horses and like 6 full-grown men in the back. So.
Oh yeah. I will say I really like the positioning that Platypus is using with his Empire. Like, he's doing such a great job with that checkerboard pattern of, like, he's got these really low-tier units, but they're perfect at just slowing down the Chaos Force enough for his shooting to just pepper the hell out of them. You know, it doesn't really matter if those spearmen or swordsmen survive. They're just there to be speed bumps.
Yep. And, I mean, they're good enough stats. Like, they're not the best necessarily, but their leadership, melee attack, defense, all that is good enough that they can, you know, they can hang in combat. And they are, in my opinion, some of the most cost-effective low-tier troops because of that. Like, we haven't seen anyone really try and rank them up, but they are also really good candidates for giving some chevrons to, some veterancy, right? The XP chevrons pre-battle, because their stats are just good for the cost. Generally makes them a pretty good candidate for that. But look at this, grenade launchers use up all their ammunition and being charged into melee. Probably a mistake, actually. Platypus probably wanted to pull them back. Yeah, you see him now pulling them back. Wants to like pull them all the way back and unsummon them to get a refund for maximum value. But I'm not sure he necessarily needs to. I mean, Platypus is definitely pushing back on all fronts, and 2,000 value lead. It's a pretty good one, pretty safe position. But let's see.
He has secured objective 3 quite nicely, and he's actually kind of slowly approaching a triple cap. He's got infantry getting around the Chaos Forces, because where there are not trolls, the Chaos line is collapsing. Yep, it's looking pretty dicey. It's Chaos units, a lot of them are starting to shatter and just, you know, not be recoverable, but the trolls hopefully will be able to sustain a little bit for Subutai here. But I'm not particularly hopeful. It looks like we've got the Sterlin's Revenge Regiment of Renowned Free Company. They've got armor piercing on their missile attacks. They're going to be a great counter for the Chaos Trolls with that absolutely devastating short-range volume of fire. And War Wagon's also using up the last of their ammunition to pick away at those Chaos Trolls, so not a great situation for Chaos by any means. Another Fate of Yuna, too, on those Hellstriders there. Yeah, especially because, like, Festus is great, but he kind of relies very heavily on getting all of his army in one place. Either, that or all the enemies in one place, but if he tries to do that, it just gives the Empire a much larger target to shoot at. So Festus is really kind of getting hard countered right now by the Empire shooting play.
Yep, spread shooting is really tough for him to deal with, and especially given how massive of a battlefield it is, it's great. Love to see some high-level Empire play. And Nurgle, I do think, will be pretty decent. They'll be better. I mean, I guess we're playing Warriors, not Nurgle. I just automatically assume because it's Festus. But, Warriors are still very good, too. But, yeah, I like to see the Empire succeeding, definitely.
Yeah, I really don't think there's going to be anything that Chaos is going to be able to do to pull this back. Like, Festus is kind of being able to have little local wins where he is. But the Empire is just, very casually, they pull a unit out and resummon it with more ammo, and then it shoots everything, and then he pulls it back out. I mean, he's making really great, effective use of every little piece of ammo, and Chaos is just not really going to be able to deal with that.
Yep. Super, super efficient shooting. And we see, again, another grenade launcher being resummoned on Vanguard. It's just fantastic. They're coming in to blast this healthy unit of Marauders here. Knights of the Blazing Sun also brought back, still completely healthy. We've got a unit of Tzeentch Knights. That's a pretty heavy pick, and they're going to be quite a presence here. The Sterling's Revenge and the Halberds and the Knights of the Blazing Sun all immediately just collapsing on that high-value target. But the barrier does help them resist damage somewhat, and there's not enough magic left for a full Fate of Yuna, so he's forced to use a Spirit Leech, which is still reasonably effective. Will do some pretty good damage there to those Chaos Knights, and yeah, just the numbers of Empire troops, the Halberdiers especially in that full surround, should be able to drag them down.
Yeah, especially they're trying so hard to get at Sterling's Revenge at the cost of everything else, so those Knights of the Blazing Sun are doing a really good job blocking up their mass, so they can't get on Sterling's Revenge as much as they want to, so they're spread out, and those Halberdiers are going to chop them up.
Yep, those Halberdiers. I'm surprised, actually, they didn't just instantly pay for themselves, but yeah, the Hellstriders do manage to get on those grenade launchers, shut them down momentarily, but we see War Wagons also being pulled back and retreated, so they can be brought back in. Yeah, like, what, 4,000 damage value lead for Platypus here. Looking very, very menacing indeed.
Yeah, Festus has kind of managed to get a lot of the Empire army gathered together, so he's going to be able to get a lot of really good effective use out of his elixirs. But, like, there's still a lot of Empire troops just happily sitting on Objective 3.
Yep.
And
yeah,
Chaos
full
is
health
quite
unit
far
of great
behind
swords.
on points.
Yeah, they're behind in pretty much every aspect of the game right now, so you can see kind of how the Empire pulls back from Festus. They just kind of leave the one halberd, more or less, to tie him up for the time being. So that way they're not getting too many units drained out by that big AoE damage effect. It's looking very good for Platypus right now. Let's see. Knights of Blazing Sun do a hard right turn there up at the top and going to charge over to hit those Forsaken. Chaos Trolls are holding on to their leadership just barely, but they're likely to rout soon, especially if the Knights of the Blazing Sun just overrun directly into them. It looks like they're actually going to go after those Marauders instead. Yeah, Chaos Warriors right behind them. Might be able to catch some of them up, but the Hellstriders even, I mean, yeah, they'll do some damage against the Sterling's Revenge, but the Sterlings definitely have good enough melee stats that they can stand and fight okay against the Hellstriders. It's not going to be a pushover by any means. I mean, they have, yeah, 32 melee defense, 36 melee attack. It's enough. They can trade okay.
Yeah, it does look like the Warriors of Chaos are managing to kind of really push back the Empire now. Like, they've finally burst that bubble of a lot of the Empire infantry, but even then, like, they're taking so much damage in exchange.
Yep. And for every, couple of units being brought in, the Warriors of Chaos themselves finally able to catch up to this objective, but just even the Vanguard units, these horsemen come off of Vanguard and immediately start getting blasted by grenades and War Wagons and Sterling's Revenge. It's just a lot of guns and faith and steel, right? Something like that.
Faith, oh my gosh. Faith, what in the world? My brain. Steel, faith, and gunpowder. There we go.
There it is. I almost broke Sotek's brain, guys.
It's like
just slightly, but oh my holy grenade launchers,
Empire
Batman,
shooting
like,
is still Empire shooting.
yeah, mobile firepower
grenade-
indeed. I mean,
Grenades are so good in this game, and the Empire are the only faction that have mobile grenades, and it shows.
yep, explosive units in general, yeah, are all very good. And mobile explosives, who would have thought? They are very squishy. Takes a lot of micro to use them effectively. But Platypus just put on an absolute clinic there on how to use them. That was very impressive performance by him. Subutai, credit to him for taking it in the chin there. I mean, he stand and took the blows and tried his best. It was just tough, man. All those, the grenade launchers, really the best answer is to counter skirmish them. Warriors of Chaos can't do that wildly effectively, and Subutai also didn't bring that much skirmish cavalry. Really only brought 3. Whereas, generally it's advisable to max out on, 6 skirmish cavalry that you can take?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an interesting one.
And Platypus played it really well. Even when, the Hellstrider showed up and Marauder Horsemen, stuff like that, he was not shy about using Fata Buna to just get rid of those immediately, recognizing that they were kind of the dominant threat. He didn't care about the big heavily armored units or the knights or any of that other stuff. They were just not as big of a priority. And he did a very good job with that.
Yep. And that will take us now to game 2 between Subutai and Platypus. Let's see if Subutai can get a game back and get back in this series. On the picks and bans, Platypus is on the table. So he's going to, for his 3 factions, pick Chaos Dwarfs, Cathay, and Skaven. Bans the Empire.
Cathay?
Subutai. Yeah, Cathay. Very interesting choice. I know, we haven't seen them yet today. Unfortunately, Subutai is actually going to ban Cathay and pick the Ogres.
Oh, dang.
Leaving Platypus with just Skaven or Chaos Dwarfs, and he is going to go Chaos Dwarfs. So let's load that up. It's possible this is the last match of the day. If Platypus can win this one, then he'll close out the series, and that will be it. But, of course, if Subutai can get a game back, then we will move on to game 3.
It is very interesting to see that it feels like Ogre Kingdoms versus Chaos Dwarfs has kind of been the predominant matchup throughout most of today.
Yes, like I said, it's a common one you'll see in multiplayer. It's a common one you'll see in the campaign. It's just a matchup you definitely should get used to, because you will be seeing it not only today, I'm sure tomorrow with Turn in Italian, you'll see it quite a bit as well. And just all around, it's something that happens, definitely. So let's talk about those ogres then. I'll start with Subutai's, once again, the Iron Blaster Lord. Seems to be the meta for these guys. Definitely makes sense, as it's mobile, relatively tanky. Got Ogre Bowls here. Looks like Man-Eater Great Weapons again as well. And yeah, just load a bowl. A literal loadable. And Nobbler Trappers as well. Why don't you talk this through the Chaos Dwarfs?
Sure, so we've got a Demon Smith, Sorcerer of Fire, up on a Great Taurus, bringing Flaming Sword of Ruin and Cascading Fire Cloak to the party. We also have 2 Magma Cannons, which immediately chased off that Iron Blaster pretty early, telling him, no, you do not get to enjoy early skirmish without penalty. We've also got, looks like, 3 units of Chaos Dwarf Warriors, 3 units of Infernal Guard, as well as some more Chaos Dwarf Warriors already being summoned to the battlefield. Gorda's Backstabber has showed up right at the beginning, just like last time. And then we do also have a skirmish unit of Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders with bows running around, trying to cause some havoc.
Nice. This time Gordas has literally no abilities or items. He's just raw stats, which I think is like at like 350 points, something crazy.
Oh yeah,
like
he's
that. I mean,
dirt cheap. For his stat line, dirt cheap.
Yep. Oh man, that Magma Cannon hits in kind of a block of trappers and just shatters the unit straight up. Wow, that was nasty.
Yeah. Infantry and Magma Cannons, not a good mix for the infantry.
Yep. I mean, especially if you're in any kind of a blocky formation, like you definitely need to be max width. Like you see, this one is in a little bit more of a narrow formation, so they have more ranks, right? Gives them a little bit more mass in case something were to charge in. but it 100% makes them more vulnerable to that type of shooting attack. Yeah, we saw the results just now, but Ogres very patiently just building up their forces. Subutai not wanting to overcommit to an engagement here. Platypus likewise just kind of patiently flanking with his magma cannons. Iron Blaster got a shot there.
Another beautiful shot.
Yep.
Ooh, those trappers
yeah,
are not
over
having
on
a
the
good
far
day.
side. Oh, no. I mean, their leadership is low enough that they are very easily routed, and it's pain. Pain for sure. And interesting not to see any laborers, though, for the Chaos Dwarfs. I guess it kind of makes sense. They're so light in a way that they'll just get killed instantly by bulls, so they might as well not even be here, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that feels the case. Ogres are really enjoying that little forest that's letting them build up in relative safety. So we do see the Iron Blaster is working on his jukes.
Yep, he's got the moves. Got the dodge skill leveled up, so he can try and roll out of the way there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ogres have lost all of their Nublars. They are gone.
Yep. It's a decent amount of value lost. What are they? 450 each, so that's 900 value already. We see in the army damage value, it's only showing what, 600. So it kind of shows you how much fled off the field too, in terms of just the unit shattering and not coming back. Some value lost there, but
yeah, the Demon Smith Sorcerer
yes.
can just kind of fire with impunity. He doesn't have a great missile attack. He's got like a little flare gun. It's mostly good for its flammable trait. Yep. But I mean, he could just kind of pot shot for what little that's worth.
It's kind of hilarious in campaign too, because like if you defeat Katarine, for example, that contact effect will replace this flammable. So then suddenly he gets an ice pistol, or you know, if you defeat Gorse, he gets a poison pistol, or
yes, I love when I have Samus from Metroid on top of a Great Taurus, getting all of her different beam weapons.
Yes, yep, and you can always get the hero too, you know, because your Lord will get that trait, right, which will replace the contact effect, but you can always get a hero to maintain that flammable contact effect as well, so it's actually really cool. I like it as like a platform for various types of damage.
I'm surprised the magma cannons aren't at least trying for some pot shots at the ogres in the forest. Because I mean, even if they miss, the flame effect will be on the ground and it would still damage the ogres.
Right, and he
it feels like
has
he's
visibility.
wasting a lot of ammo on that Iron Blaster.
Yeah, let's take a look here at the value accrued by these magma cannons. They're getting close to half their ammunition used. And one of them's got 441 with 188 kills. The other one, 0 kills, only 312 value. So they're not quite on track to pay for themselves. It's going to be pretty close if they only fire at the Iron Blaster from now on. But yeah, it definitely seems like a fairly inefficient use of that ammo. But wow, look at this. Subutai saved up 5,000 points. What is he waiting on, I wonder? To try and just... Is he just trying to... Yeah. Maybe just run the ammo out of Platypus here? And then just go for one big push all at once? Not really sure.
Interesting. So the magma cannon's connected with the forest and they did not leave a fire trail on the ground.
Ah, so if the shot gets blocked by a tree, it will not leave the little dot on the ground then. Okay. Guess we all learned something new today. Oh man, that one ogre getting roasted by the flame cannon.
Hey, fat burns, man.
Yep. I can only imagine how that must smell.
All right, here comes the big ogre push. We got Sky Striders and Man Eaters and Ogre Bulls. Very nasty little squad.
Absolutely disgusting. Just dumped out all his value right there. Nice.
That was a good magma shot.
Yeah, and notice how the little damage over time effect on the ground actually staggers units. Like those 3 Crusher models that are now separated kind of got staggered by the cannon, right? It slows them down. So that's why also, if infantry units get hit by it while they're advancing, and then like the entire center of the unit ends up advancing through that little vortex on the ground, that's what really does like the most damage to infantry for sure.
Yeah, it's very nasty. Like it's such a good shooting attack because it's like it's also disruption and it does pretty obscene levels of damage.
Yes.
And it's effective against all sizes. Like, literally, the only thing it will not stagger is a big monster. But like Monstrous Infantry, Monster Cavalry will absolutely get staggered.
Yep, as we're seeing right now with those Crushers. Iron Blaster continuing to respond. Has the Iron Blaster actually paid for itself? It's used all of its ammunition, and it has not paid for itself. That's a little bit of a problem. I guess hasn't really had too many high-value units to shoot at so far. But now, I guess it can get unsummoned and resummoned, and we're likely to see that fairly soon. But yeah, interesting. Those cannon shots also missing the Hashut's Ravagers pretty severely. Definitely painful. Is that a Foot Drazoath? It is. Foot Drazoath, 65 melee defense, decent weapon strength with plus 20 bonus versus infantry. And yeah, he's just kind of here to be a little tanky character. He's pretty cheap too, honestly, if you strip him of all his spells and abilities. On foot, it's actually very affordable.
So the Ogres are doing pretty well overall on objectives, but the Chaos Dwarfs have kind of let them have it. I mean, they're so far ahead on points, it's not that big of a deal for them as far as capture weight or victory tickets goes.
Yeah, they've definitely got plenty of time, so no need to rush back in and try and retake the objectives and overextend. Just build value. I mean, we have seen people get a little bit behind in this position before, but as long as Platypus can keep trading well on value, that's the biggest thing, right? But it looks like we got a nice Flaming Sword coming in here, right? Yes. Interesting. Flaming Sword of Ruin on the Bull Centaurs. That should help them really cut through those Sky Striders. Wow, they're taking a lot of damage there.
And those Magma Cannons are trying to get back. The nice thing about the Chaos Dwarf War Machines is they actually do chuck along at a pretty decent little speed. They're a little faster than your typical War Machines.
Yeah. They're still pretty slow, but yeah, they're faster than like a Empire cannon trying to push their cannons around the field, right? But looks like the Demon Smith is taking a little bit of damage as well. But oh man, those Iron Guts, nice charge straight through those Chaos Dwarf Warriors. Iron Guts got a little bit of a buff. They now have a direct anti-infantry bonus, +5 only, but it's definitely something. Will help them trade much better against these Chaos Dwarf Warriors.
Oh, the double point blank shot with the Magma Cannon. Oh
yeah.
That Ogre unit not having a good time.
They are so sad right now, and probably burnt. Give them some aloe, please. Sky Striders coming back in here. They got a nice Troll Guts. They've still got most of their unit models online too, so they can get in and get some really nice damage potentially. The Bull Centaurs, surprisingly, the Trappers seem like a pretty viable counter to them because of the volume of fire, the just massive amounts of numbers. That little trap effect they have also does some direct damage as well, just a little bit, not too much, but Noblar traps there. Does it actually hit the right unit? Because that's the thing, is you can't really pick which unit it hits. Looks like it probably hit this Infernal
snare is definitely a toss-up.
Yeah, it sometimes can be really good, but not something you necessarily want to be relying on a lot of the time. But the Infernal Guard are just not going quietly into that good night. Their leadership and high stats allow them to be basically invincible to Noblars, and even Bulls are going to struggle to trade effectively against them due to that armor. I really like that pick here, actually. I'm not the biggest fan of Infernal Guards. Eternal Guards, something completely, in fact, literally the opposite, but Infernal Guards, yes.
They might as well be Eternal.
Right? They are, yeah, they can feel Eternal with how tanky they are, certainly.
Man, the Ogres are just finding they're having a hard time finding purchase on the Chaos Dwarf army.
Yep, this Chaos Dwarf army had a lot of teeth. And that armor, even the basic Chaos Dwarf warriors, that armor helps them so much against Bulls. We see a huge force of Noblars being brought out here by Subutai. I'm not sure it's going to be enough. At this point, he's like 4,000 down on army damage value, and the Chaos Dwarfs have pretty much all of their high-value units still online, even if they are fairly beat up in many cases, like Blazing Beards, Hashut's Ravagers still fighting. Got the Damon Smith, obviously, still fighting just fine. And, oh, man, nasty Magma Cannon shot. Just probably going to rout those Noblars before they even get to combat. Yeah, oh, man, brutal stuff. So Sotek, in a fight...
The Infernal Guard, they are so durable. Like, even when they're getting sandwiched between, like, 3 Ogre units, They've got rear charge, flank charge, everything. They're still not really, like, they're taking damage, but not as much as you'd think.
Yeah.
And their
definitely.
leadership
I mean,
remains fairly steady.
Yeah, it's pretty good leadership overall for sure, and leadership often in domination at least is I would say leadership and speed are even more important than they are in land battles, just because that staying power to be able to hold on to an objective and obviously the speed to get to it in the first place, both are super important here, and the ogre's just kind of suffering from their low leadership right now. I was going to ask you, so Gnoblar versus Hobgoblin in the lore, 1v1 fight, who wins?
Oh, the Hobgoblin would absolutely obliterate the Gnoblar.
Yeah.
Gnoblars are like
sense.
one of the weakest goblin subspecies.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, when I look at the size
Hobgoblins
disparity...
Yeah, Hobgoblins are a fair bit taller. They're like, Hobgoblins are almost on par with orcs. Like regular orcs. Whereas hill goblins, or Gnoblars as they're known, are they're sad little guys.
Yes, they are, and all the ones that were brought in this build especially were quite sad. Some of the trappers managed to trade okay, but honestly, Gnoblars just got terrorized by that magma cannon, both magma cannons rather.
Yeah, pretty much a single shot would break or or even shatter them, which is just bonkers.
Yep. It's very painful. Yeah, Subutai's build just had a rough go of it in general, I think. Platypus, like I said, this triple Infernal Guards, I don't love these guys in a lot of matchups, but I really love them, I think, in this matchup. And then obviously the Magma Cannons are what they are, and then the rest of the build here, I would expect to see quite a bit of damage from the Bull Centaurs, and that is in fact what we do see. Yeah, so Subutai unfortunately is going to get eliminated on that. Platypus moves on to the next round. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say I do think the Infernal Guard work really well with if you're gonna invest in magma cannons, you need to have something that can hold the line. Infernal Guard, they will do that.
Definitely. And again, that dwarven leadership, they are, even though they're chaos dwarfs, they're lower leadership than order dwarfs generally. They're still pretty good leadership, certainly good enough to hold out. So yeah, that's all the games we have for today. So we've got our players moving on to the next round. Platypus, Houseplant, what was it? Was it yeah, Tim the Wilder, right? And then
yes, pretty sure.
If I remember back to the beginning of the stream, long time ago, I know, but Housecat also. So we'll check in with them tomorrow with Turn and Italian. We
have a Houseplant and a Housecat.
Yes, that's right.
What are these multiplayer names, guys? They're all like on these weird vibes.
Yep. Well, just a couple more quick things before we sign off for the day. Well done to everyone on Twitch who guessed correctly any of the questions that have been popping up on those little polls. Each correct answer secured you a ticket into a raffle where they'll be drawing keys for the Chaos Dwarfs. So if you've won, expect your keys soon.
We do have
you didn't
names
win,
for
don't
that.
worry. We'll have another 10 keys to give out tomorrow.
Yeah, apparently we do have. Yes, we can read them out. Where are they? Oh, I see them. Okay, so I've got 10 winners for you nerds. So the following people are today's winners. We've got Belcho, Pascal Obistro, Fresh Car Rotten King, Dagaric CZ, Frosty 1515, Azran 15, a lot of 15s, Neo Roman Pizza 2002, Orange _ Tornado, Chamarops, Demimai is yours, and there you go. So those people, you will have keys on your Twitch rewards. Congrats. And I think Dav was saying before I accidentally interrupted him, there will be another 10 keys tomorrow, so make sure you show up for that.
Yes, if you did not win today, be sure to tune in tomorrow, and you should also tune in to just watch the awesome games that are going to be showcased tomorrow.
They're going to be so good.
Yes, they are. They are. I'm excited for you guys, honestly, and I'll certainly be here in chat hanging out with you guys. Yeah, that's it for me. And on behalf of Loremaster of Sotek, I want to say thank you guys all so much. Thanks to Creative Assembly. Huge thanks to Intel for making it all possible. Anything else to say, Loremaster of Sotek?
Nothing. Just kind of want to reiterate that. Thanks to Creative Assembly for kind of putting this together for us all to enjoy and allow the community to come together over some great multiplayer games. And thanks to Intel for helping sponsor it. It's very awesome and unique to be able to make sure that every single competitor gets to walk away with different rewards, which is super duper awesome.
Yes, certainly. And it's really nice to be able to reward them for their time. You know, each participant in this tournament already had to qualify to be here, and in doing so, they played, you know, tournaments over the course of several months, various domination tournaments, and, you know, they had to play in essentially the final of Turin's, you know, kind of season, right, which was also the qualifier for this. So they're, you know, proved themselves to even get to this point. So we want Creative Assembly wanted to reward that. So big thanks to everyone. Yep. Okay.
Be sure to join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. BST.
Yes, yes, yes. What would you say, Sotek, was your favorite moment from today?
Oh gosh, I would have to say my favorite moment was as much as they didn't end up winning. Seeing the Dread Saurian chasing down like hordes of bull centaurs and them just running for their lives. That was an enjoyable image. I had a good time with that, actually. I got some good movie quality footage of that.
No, yeah. It's like,
what about
it's
yourself?
Just like the trailer, right? For that DLC.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of
absolutely perfect. Like he's there for the beef, which is just it's just perfect.
Fantastic. I would probably have to go with the Empire in 2 games, 1 win, 1 loss, but still 2 games of the Empire where they were just absolutely blasting. I guess really 3 games for the Empire, but especially the rockets and the grenade launchers. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for explosions. Yeah, very basic, yes, but it's yeah, to see the rockets and the grenades just exploding, you know, various things, it brings a tear to my eye. It makes me smile.
Do you have a pick for tomorrow, or who you're rooting for?
If I had to make a prediction, I'm gonna probably go with Houseplant. He is probably the best domination player in the world right now. In fact, he's been consistently winning a lot of stuff. And I mean, today he had a very good showing against Flying Taco, who's also a very strong player. Like, those two have got to the finals of many tournaments in the past against each other. So, I'm probably gonna put my money on Houseplant. But I think that's it.
Yeah, man, I'm really curious to see how this is all going to go down. There were a lot of really nice showcases today. It was very good to see the Chaos Dwarfs in particular making a lot of great showings. You know, they kind of are the new. Granted, the whole point of this is like hardcore multiplayer, not necessarily showcase, but it was nice to get to see showcases of a lot of the new units and stuff.
Oh, definitely. It's good to see that the Chaos Dwarfs, in my opinion, from what I've seen here today and from my own experience playing them and everything, they are strong, they're viable, they're competitive, but they're not too strong. They're not completely overpowered and broken. So I think it's great, honestly. We saw some wins, we saw some losses. Overall, a great showing by the Chaos Dwarfs today.
Yes, indeed. So I think we're good.
I think so.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. Dav, if you want to sign us off, bye-bye.
See you later, and be sure to check out Loremaster of Sotek on YouTube. Myself also, I have been Dahvplays. It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you later.